If everyone could take their seats, please. The chair would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Board of Education of CUSD 201 tonight, March 25th, 2014. I'm looking at the minutes. Mrs. McMahon, roll call, please.
Mr. Armstrong?
Here.
Ms. Caparelli? Mrs. Charlton?
Here.
Mrs. Hancock?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mrs. Knapbush?
Here.
Mr. Price?
Here.
If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now we will have the approval of the minutes of the February 25th, 2014. I had one thing on the first page under Secretary Pro Tem, motion by Mr. Johnson to second by Mr. Price to name Mr. Armstrong for that should be the February 25th, 2014 meeting, right? Right. Because that's the, okay. See, I was so excited to say something. Okay, are there does anybody else have anything?
Are we doing anything tonight about that? Our secretary's not here.
Oh, that's right. I know she's coming.
Okay.
Okay, that's a good point. She told me she was going to be here about 7:30. What, should we have a secretary pro tem?
Yeah, we should do a secretary pro tem until
Okay, all right.
she arrives.
Then, Gary, as long as you mentioned it, the chair will entertain a motion to name Mr. Armstrong as secretary pro tem for tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Gary, for that. Congratulations. Okay, so are there any other questions about that then? Okay. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February 25th, 2014 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain? 25th we're doing, right?
February 25th. Okay. Right. Okay. Any nays? The motion carried. Now the closed session. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the February 25th, 2014 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Any nays? Motion carried. Okay, March 11th, 2014. The only comment I had is just a typing thing. If we could, wherever Westway is referenced, sometimes it has two W's and sometimes it just has lowercase. So just for continuity's sake. Other than that. Okay, anything else then? The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the March 11th, 2014 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion approved. The chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the closed session of the March 11th, 2014 regular meeting of the Board of Education as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion approved. Okay, are there any public comments? Okay, then we will start with Celebrate Success, WTA.
Hi, good evening. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you and the community tonight. The Westmont Teachers Association would like to introduce Lauren O'Connor and Mark Delisle from Westmont High School. Lauren's a guidance counselor and has a strong focus on helping students be successful in high school and helps them prepare for their post-secondary plans. She's also the sponsor of the Westmont High School Student Ambassador Program, which supports new students in their transition to Westmont High. As an active member of the Illinois Association for College Admission Counseling, Lauren also chairs the statewide College Awareness and Preparation Committee. Mark is the math department chair and teaches advanced algebra, honors pre-calc, and AP stats. He also coaches the Westmont High School girls golf team. Mark is committed to the district's initiative to increase student achievement, especially in the area of math. He's an active member of the DuPage County Math Curriculum Articulation Committee. Please welcome Lauren and Mark.
Good evening, Community Unit School District Board members and guests. The Westmont High School Guidance Department is proud to share that we will be applying for American School Counselor Association RAMP status in October of 2014. The American School Counselor Association, or ASCA, is our primary professional organization, and it is comprised of over 33,000 school counselors across the United States. ASCA supports school counselors in our efforts to help students focus on academic, personal, social, and career development so students can be successful in school and in the community. ASCA supports school counselors by providing professional development opportunities, government advocacy, publications, and other resources. One of the major resources ASCA provides is a national model for helping school counselors develop, maintain, and improve on a comprehensive guidance counseling program. An ASCA National Model School Counseling Program is comprehensive in scope, preventative in design, and developmental in nature. These programs are designed to ensure that every student receives the benefits of the program and that all counselors adhere to the belief that students are more important than the system. Westmont High School is happy to report that our guidance curriculum is aligned to the American School Counselor Association National Model, and so we will be applying for Recognized ASCA Model Program or RAMP status this October. The application for RAMP status requires our department to carefully document all of our interventions, collaborate with key stakeholders during the school day and via an advisory council, and assess our program on a regular basis to determine how it can be improved. It is a 12-step application which will culminate in over 200 pages of documentation, reflection, and evaluation. Applying for RAMP status is a collaborative effort among our department, including myself, Larissa Zalisco, Angela Johnson, Bonnie Warner, and Nancy Betzel. We would also like to recognize the members of our advisory council, administrators Jack Balderman and Lindsay Peterzak, teachers Andreas Damianidis, Bridget Durbin, and Don Kemmerling, students Sean Alexander, Caitlin Burke, John Martinez, Jesus Origel, and Luke Ostrowski, parents Daniel Abaticola and Liliana Verdera, and community members Janet Flint, Jill Sternard, and Carol Wyrostic. The question has been posed, what do school counselors do? But a more important question is, how are students different as a result of what school counselors do? Adhering to the American School Counselor Association National Model, applying for and hopefully receiving RAMP status, and always putting students first helps our department ensure that students will be different. Indeed, students will be better because of what we as school counselors do. So we thank you for your support in this endeavor, and we look forward to updating you as we move through the process.
I'm glad I get to follow her. Sorry, should have went first. I want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to talk in front of you guys and inform you what's going on with the math department. I want to take today to talk about the Curriculum Advisory Committee that we have with COD. And it's a collaboration between the math department chairs of DuPage and the COD teachers and administration. And it's articulation on ways to improve transitions into high school math classes, improve curriculum changes so students improve their college readiness. And these goals came about because of a large number of students across DuPage were taking remedial math courses or doing poorly in their math courses at COD. And so kind of a consortium of math department chairs went to COD because this was an issue that a lot of kids were paying for these classes and they weren't getting credit. So we wanted to improve that rate of, so that they're not taking remedial math courses. So in response, what Westmont did, and by the way, we have a formal agreement with COD to exchange data. So they get data on our incoming students, and we get data back from them on students that were formerly of Westmont High Schools. And that's what we spend a lot of our meeting time, is just analyzing that data and going over that to see where we could improve on things. But in response, with the help of the guidance department, they're always great working with COD, we took almost all of our juniors to COD to take the Compass test, which is a math placement test. And we wanted to show the juniors that you need to keep working in your senior year, and a lot of them scored surprisingly where they had to take remedial math courses if they didn't change anything. And it improved the effort that they gave in their junior classes, and I think it improved what classes they signed up for their senior year, that they need to stay in a rigorous math course all the way through high school to improve. And so we're going to continue to work with them in the future. They're giving us our first set of data in the next meeting on how last year's seniors did for this school year. So that'll be an interesting time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, are there any other public comments? Okay, consent agenda. We are going to pull the first one, personnel recommendations, until after closed, and then we will vote on that. So does anybody have any questions on anything else? The chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended. Number 1, approval of IHSA membership. Number 2, abatement of working cash fund. 3, approval of March 2014 expenditure report. And 4, ratification of February 2014 regular payroll. Roll call, Mrs. McMahon?
So moved.
Oh,
Second.
roll call.
We're a little off tonight.
I told you, didn't I tell you already?
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Notbush?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Okay, the first item for discussion tonight is a monthly, presentation of monthly financial statements. Mrs. Anderson?
Okay, you have the routine monthly financial statements. Again, the state owes us about $347,000 that they vouchered but haven't released. We did receive about $85,000 from the state last month, and we received a small installment of the 2012 tax levy. So overall, we've collected $21.5 million to date, and that's a 99.8% collection rate, which is very good. In the education fund, again, things are, we're running comparable to the prior year. Again, there's about $244,000 that the state owes us. And operations and maintenance fund and transportation fund, we're comparable to the prior year budget. And again, the state owes us about $103,000 in the transportation fund. When we look at the expenditures, the education fund is comparable to the prior year. I'm monitoring that because we have had several additional special ed students. So we have increased outplaced tuition costs, and monitoring that to just kind of determine overall impact on the budget there. When we look at the operations and maintenance fund, expenditures are higher than the prior year averages, but they're below budget for this time of year. But one of the things that will cause a little bit of concern as we move forward over the next couple months is the increased overtime expense because of the severe winter, and also our utilities, our gas utilities. After I wrote this, we received our February bill, and for a couple of our buildings, we've spent as much to date right now as we did all of last year, the last several years. So we haven't had a winter like this since about 2007. So we do know that our gas utility costs will be significantly greater than budget. How much more, I don't know. Hopefully March won't be as expensive, but they are thinking that it will be. We've gotten notice from a utility that it will be probably comparable, maybe even higher. So anyway, that was, we got spoiled, I think, by the last few mild winters. And right now, we're 57.6% spent to date. We were 53% spent to date at this time last year. So again, we'll continue to monitor that and see if we need to make any adjustments to our budget at the end of the year. We do have a couple contingencies built in, and hopefully we won't need to use those, although we've had a few unexpected repairs at the high school as well. So there is a possibility that we could exceed budget in the O&M fund this year. And then the transportation fund, again, right now, things were going along, some of it's timing of invoices and things, and it looked like we were on budget. Right now, we're about 10% higher than the prior year averages, and this is strictly a result of the special ed transportation costs. Again, the addition of those students that were not in our program last year, and most of them weren't here at the beginning of the school year. So we're about $149,000. We spent about $149,000 more than we did at this time last year. I'm going to be working on some projections to try and see about what that impact is going to be for the rest of the year. We still have at least one more student, I think, that entered this month, so I will keep you updated on that as well. And otherwise, everything else is status quo. So, does anybody have any questions about any of the other?
After receiving our gas and electric bill at home, I'm sure that extrapolates much more in these big buildings, so. Thank you. Okay, is that?
That's all.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is the EBERT update, and.
Marie, I just made a quick suggestion.
Yes.
That might be a lengthy conversation or two.
Yes.
Do we want to maybe allow our guests to go first instead? Because I'm sure they, just making a suggestion,
Yeah.
otherwise they're going to have to sit here for our EBERT, and I don't think that's really what they want to do.
Transportation.
Yep.
Okay. Excellent. Let's move to transportation conversation then first. And we have representatives from Westway here, so.
All right, well, and, at the last board meeting, we had a lengthy discussion about transportation, about the level of service that was being provided to the district, and, discussion about some of the concerns related to that. I had also shared with you that I had had several conversations with Tom O'Sullivan, who's the vice president of Westway, and we're working on, making sure that they were aware of the issues that we were having, and working on things to try and make sure that we received the level of service that we expect in this community. And as a result of that board meeting, and prior to that, we'd started keeping track of, the arrival times of our buses. And so we've monitored for 10 days. And I'll just give you a quick breakdown by building. At Manning, we've had 100 trips over the last 10 days. And that's so the AM route, the PM route, and then if there's any, field trips or whatever. And we had 4 late buses, so that's about a 4% late average. And those were all the AM buses. And we had on Monday, we had 2 late this week, and there was a sub-driver on that route. So that is the reason for that. At the junior high, we've had 140 trips. 3 of them were late, so that's about a 2% late rate. One of the things that I want to make sure, and those were, I think 2 of them were, two of them were morning, and 1 of them was the afternoon dismissal that was late. And one of the things in the morning when the bus is late, they're supposed to get there around 7:45. Kids aren't actually late for class though, because they don't start till 8:20. The only impact that it may have is because they start routes at the junior high and then those routes go to the elementary, so it could mean that the other routes are late. But at the junior high, the kids are not actually impacted academically by a late bus in the morning. At Miller, they had 81 trips, and one of those was late, and that was a late run after school for the Title I study club. And they, again, sub-bus driver on that route that afternoon. And then at the senior high, we have had 81 trips. Now, I am missing, I didn't have the data for the last 2 days there. But up through the 21st, 81 trips, one was late, so that was a 1% late rate. And that was for one of the athletics, and the coach or athletic director, I'm not sure, had changed the time of the game. And so notice was sent on a Friday, and unfortunately they didn't get everything translated for that Monday game. So, Tom O'Sullivan and I have had lots of conversations on what protocols and procedures, we continue to put in place. Again, how we are monitoring our, field trips and extracurricular trips to make sure that, some of the onus needs to be on the school district to make sure that we've gotten confirmation the day before or 2 days before that, yes, we have trips planned, and yes, this is the right time, and things like that. So making sure that everybody on both ends follows through and follows up. So we continue to work on that. And the other one of the items at the high school was the Brook Hill apartments were missed. Now, we went back and checked the GPS, and the bus was there at 7:18. It's supposed to arrive at 7:20. So kids are supposed to be out at the stop 5 minutes early. So, it's one of those things. Do you count that as late or, as a misstop or not? So I included it, but we do want to make sure that kids are out there about 5 minutes early. We've also had conversations about if the bus gets there early, though, should they be waiting until that 7:20 time? So anyway, we've got Tom O'Sullivan is here tonight, and so he's going to share with you some of the things that they're doing on their end and working with bus drivers and things like that, and then he can answer any questions that you may have as well. So Tom, if you'd like to step to the podium.
Tom O'Sullivan, and with me is Shelley and John. They're the co-managers at Westway.
Just so you
So-
know, what
I'm
you
sorry.
have there is up on the screen. So if you have any
Oh, I'm
private
sorry.
notes,
Okay.
I'm sure it has.
Proprietary, no.
Great.
Just some scribbled,
FYI.
some scribbled notes. I didn't know how the format would go. I don't know if you had questions that you wanted me to answer, or did you want me to talk in generalities about the conversations that I've had with Kim, or whatever you feel is appropriate.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. Some of the things that we've talked about protocols, what you're doing with
Okay. Well,
your bus drivers and things like that.
First of all, thank you for having us here tonight. We really do enjoy this contract, and I'm sorry that we are here under these circumstances. But we started this contract, this is our second year of doing this, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think last year the service was relatively pretty good. In fact, in taking over, for the first year, it's pretty difficult, but I think it was pretty good last year. This year, I don't think it's been awful or anything by any means, but obviously it hasn't been the same type of service that you've expected that you had last year. And Kim has been very good. Obviously, Kevin's been very good. We've had a couple of meetings. We've talked on the phone. Some of the things we're doing, and I kind of want to know if I want to pass these around or what have you. I did observe the board meeting from last time, and I do know that you had some very good questions, I thought, that came up. And one was, and it's always, I know Kim mentioned it tonight, sub-driver. Let me talk about drivers first in general. Drivers they're a part-time job. And it's kind of an entry-level job, although there's a lot to it because there's a lot of training involved. There's a criminal background check, there's drug screening, there's a lot of testing, and then there's a lot of other testing that's done before they get behind the wheel and drive a school bus, which we're very much part of that. And we like what the state does. In fact, we go beyond what the state asks for, because once we feel that a driver is ready and that we're going to start them in the training process, we first have them do a physical test to make sure they can do the physical part of in case there's an emergency evacuation, getting the children out of the school bus. So we do that, so we go beyond what the state asks for. But then, so it's a good 4 or 5 weeks before somebody's actually behind the wheel and driving a school bus. This year, in the past 4 or 5 years, I'm sure everybody knows there's been a recession, the economy's been down, and with that, people are willing to take a part-time job, or they've lost their job, so they're willing to take a part-time job. And we were getting pretty good applications, and we were doing well with the driver numbers. This last year, obviously the economy has picked up a little. It's still not great, but we've really noticed in this last year, we were a little caught off guard that the quality of application, the number of applications has been reduced. During the year, we've also had people that we did hire who were getting called back to either their job or another full-time job that they were getting. So it has been a struggle with the driver numbers. Obviously not just us, but anybody, even school districts have been having some issues with the driver numbers. For your district at today, we have, I think, 12 routes that we run, 2 routes in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, that type of thing. We have 11 regular driver on those routes right now. We do have one, what we call open route, that we fill with a standard sub. Obviously, we have some people in training, and we're hoping to fill that. But we do feel it's pretty close. And every bus, obviously, there's absenteeism, so you do have a sub driver. But what I wanted to kind of show, and these are just kind of for these are, if you want to pass these around, but these are our route sheets. And in the route sheets, they show the turn-by-turn directions, and they also show the stops. So whether the driver is your normal regular driver or it's a sub-driver, the driver is handed a route sheet. And I know I've heard the stories that the children had to tell the driver how to take the children home that day. And we understand that, we hear that, and we do not like to hear that, because everybody has a route sheet and they should be following that, and it is turn-by-turn directions on there. So I just wanted to show what we do on that. The other thing we're doing after the conversations we had is this week, I think Thursday, both Shelley and John are going to be having a small meeting with just your drivers, the Westmont drivers, just to have a conversation with them about expectations, about timeliness of being on stops, about calling in if they're running late. Sometimes drivers feel that if they may get in trouble if they call in and say, I'm running 15 minutes late, even though it's just the opposite, obviously, because we can't then inform the school or the district, a railroad, or whatever the issue may be that they're running late. So we're going to go over that again and the expectations of what they should be doing. We did also discuss the athletic and charter trips, and my understanding is Shelley says that at the beginning of the week, somebody from the district typically calls and kind of goes over what all the charter and athletic trips are for the week. And then we correspondingly review the information we have, and we then email back and forth saying agreeing or not agreeing, these are the trips we have for the week. So it is a nice working relationship on that we do go back and forth, is trying to hopefully that we don't miss a trip, or that a trip sometimes gets rescheduled for different times. So I wanted to address that. One of the other things that was brought up that we've discussed is the tapes. Sometimes tapes are requested, the cameras are requested from so we have to get the bus, find out which one it is, We have to take it out, and then we have to download it onto a DVD player. And then once we get that done, we have to get it to a driver who's heading to that particular school, who will then drop it off. I was asking Shelley what the format is, and she said typically sometimes it's a phone call, sometimes it's an email from a school saying I need Route 5, whatever the school might be. I was talking to Shelley, what I'd like to institute is we have an electronic form. I think that would work better, and we'd like to maybe get that to all your principals and I think that's something I could work with Kim on. And I think it's something that, it's kind of a form, it's filled out, we know the date that it's requested, and then we at the bottom could indicate what we've done or not done and get that back. So it kind of hopefully takes the guessing game out of when was it asked for and when did it get there. And you can track better, hopefully, that we're getting them to you on time. So I'd like to implement that. Other than that, it's been I know you were talking about your heating cost, and this winter has been very tough. And obviously in the school bus business, we're outside. It's not an easy thing to do. It's been very trying on our mechanics and our drivers. And I know we've had the weather days where we've run late, and no matter if we left an hour early, I think we would have been late to your schools on some of those days with the snow and that. But our expectations are is, one other thing I was going to kind of point out, and Kim was sort of mentioning that, is that, the bus goes out, and typically, as I said, there's 12 buses, but each bus does 2 routes, and then each route has typically about 10 routes on it. So if you look at it, there's approximately 480 stops that are made both morning and afternoon each day. And out of that, there's obviously a lot of opportunities for something to go wrong or something to happen. And but that's our job, and that's what our training does, and that's what we feel proud of. And it's like I said, it's been a difficult winter, but we do feel that you shouldn't be hearing about people late at stops and that's where we should come in. At least the communication should be there if we are running late. So I can obviously take questions. That's all I can think of at the top of my head as far as watching from last week.
I just want to first of all say thank you for attending. That, especially if you watched the last board meeting, you had to know that this is obviously a heated issue in our
Very
district.
understandable.
And I was actually the one that asked to have it brought to the attention because I think it is what it is. I mean, there's issues. And so I appreciate the fact that that we're looking at this. And I guess the question that, and again, it's that communication. To me, I think that's probably the most important, because if we have to make sure that our children get to school safely. And it just kind of becomes an issue where if we have a situation where, there's a route and the children are supposed to be there, and yes, we do suggest to our parents that they get there 5 minutes early. The problem is when you start to get these discussions of, well, the bus is always late, And like you had mentioned, if the bus driver leaves. And again, this winter, I think, was very difficult. And so, whereas maybe the bus is a half hour late and maybe they are there technically in time to walk into their first class, there's little children who might be standing on a bus corner for a half hour. So I guess that's where this has come in, is that, and some buses don't arrive at all. And so sometimes by the time all that communication happens, the school day has already started. And I know, and I appreciate the tracking for the past 2 weeks. Now that we're talking about it. But I guess that, and if you watched the meeting, you saw it, so I don't want to, talk about that for anybody, but however, for anybody who maybe didn't see the meeting, the questions come in that we are expecting a level of service such as if you get to a route and it says 7:20, that you shouldn't leave till 7:20 because some children are not there. And if a driver doesn't show up, and I know what you're saying is that they don't want to call and say that something's wrong, but I think we have to remember here that this isn't just we're not talking about buses. What we're talking about are children on buses. And to me, that's the most important thing. So I hate to be in the position where we have to start, bringing up these, clauses in our contracts for missed routes and things like that. But, so for me, it's not about the bus, it's about the children. And some of them are very young, and we've had situations where kids don't know what to do if and again, we as board members, I think our job is to represent our community. And so we hear these things like all the time. Now, somebody might not take the time all the time to write a lengthy email or such things, but we do hear these things. And we hear our kids and other kids. So, I'm really hoping that from my seat that there are processes in place. So if a bus isn't coming, then somebody notifies somebody so that we can have these kids either not standing out there or something. Okay, so I get, it's a little bit different when they're leaving school because at least there's the opportunity that they could wait in the building or something. But I think this winter, obviously we're all stressed beyond belief with our own situations about travels and things, but I think there's just a huge safety issue when it comes to when we're talking about the kids. So I think to me, that has to be the focus.
I would agree. I think that, not that, I'm sure we've had some late buses. I think the communication hasn't been up to par to what we would expect. And I do know in the last month and a half or 2 months, I think it's gotten a lot better, but it should have been better the whole year. And you don't know, if you're finding out from parents who are calling you and telling you, hey, the bus isn't here, we should be the ones, or somebody from us should be calling the school or letting the district know that we're 20 minutes late or whatever the reason is. And I understand that there are some penalties in there, and I understand, if they get implemented, obviously we obviously don't want those to happen, but we understand why they're happening, and we would do everything we can to obviously be on time and to ensure that those penalties do not happen. But we understand why they're there and that that's why they're implemented. But that communication issue is very key, and it's, I think, from talking to Shelley and John, I think they do have a good rapport at the principals at the buildings and that, and whoever their liaison is. And it seems like they got a pretty good relationship with them. But obviously, if we're not letting people know if we're having an issue or something, then that's a problem, and we can't have that happen.
I just have a couple of quick questions. The route sheets are very interesting. They're very explicit. It would be difficult to not be able to do this. If you just take it and do what it says, I can certainly see that a person could be successful. One question I have is, it seems that the regular drivers are more successful with meeting the times and this type of thing. Do the subs get this same exact sheet?
Yes.
Okay, so then my next question is...
Okay, I think I could answer that, but go ahead.
Well, my next question is, I know that by state regulation, as you mentioned, there are a lot of things that a person has to do in order to be allowed to drive a school bus. And safety and all of these myriad of things that we all really want to have happen. Is there something in your preparation of drivers, whether they're sub-drivers or regular route drivers, do they have tools for how to problem solve, not the things they're already trained for, like an accident or a train crossing issue, but things like, I've got the wrong kid who's a third grader got on my bus. Do you have something in your training that isn't really a state level safety issue, but gives the driver some toolkit or some avenue with which to problem solve what the state might consider less of an issue, but we would consider pretty monumental issue?
That's a very good question. And to first talk about the sub-driver and taking the directions, I'm a driver myself. I've been driving for 21 years, and if need be, I do drive routes. And obviously, I'm a sub-driver. I don't have a route every day. So when I get a direction, even though I am very familiar with Westmont and Cass Avenue and all that, when I start going into neighborhoods, what happens, and I'm not trying to make excuses, but they're following, and instead of making a right on Elm, they make a left on Elm. And then all of a sudden, they're not sure where they're at, and then the directions don't make sense. And then they're trying to figure out and get back to where they were, and they lose 10 minutes or 15 minutes. To also answer your question about the students, you know, we do a lot of special needs routes. Half of what we do is regular education, and the other half is special needs. And special needs, it's more house-to-house stops. It's more knowing that child. In regular education, I think our drivers, and we talk to them about doing a good job of, they really do get to know the children on the bus. And they do get to know a third grader if they're not on or not. A sub-driver will not know what child is supposed to be on that. There's a corner, they're supposed to pick up at 5th and Elm, and then 8 children are supposed to get on. And so they may not know that child was supposed to get on, or they know the stop, they know they're supposed to get to school, and that type of thing. But we do a lot of training, not just driving the bus, but a lot of interaction of behavior management, what to do when the children are on the bus, a sick child on the bus, which happens a lot with elementary students and stuff. And so we do do a lot of other training with them, and that goes on throughout the year. At least once a month we have these meetings. This is an extra meeting we're having, obviously, this week with just your drivers. But I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Just seems like that's a place where we're having some trouble, is the odd situation is not, you've already mentioned communication, the odd situation is not being handled well, particularly from a communication perspective, whether it's the driver back to you guys and you guys to us. I'm not sure where the breakdown is, but I know that the board as well as parents spend a fair amount of time beating Kim up, yeah, who is obviously just the messenger for us.
Correct.
But, you know, I don't know if there's other things that can be given to the driver or ways to communicate to them that make it less threatening, that they may feel they would be in trouble, you know, to eliminate that.
And we do. We try to, obviously, we let them know that the expectation is on us. It's not, you know, anybody could have a railroad crossing or whatever the issue. There's something with the street that's going to cause them to have to go around or you know, lose time. We just need to know if it's more than 10 minutes, we need to know so we can notify the schools. And we're pretty good about that. For whatever reason, we don't want them to think that they're in trouble or something.
Tom, I guess I just going to kind of piggyback a little bit more there. I guess mine's just more of a curiosity question. So you have the sub-drivers out there, your buses are GPS. Are the sub-drivers watched more in live GPS than standard drivers are?
I think we're using the GPS more, I suppose, as a tool to track, to do a history type of thing, more than just, we do audit and we do check to see what time some drivers are starting their route, ending their route. In fact, I also have.
But that's after the fact, though, right?
It's after the fact, yeah. You can pull it up on a video, on a computer. It's web-based. It's a web-based system, and you can pull it up and you can see exactly where that bus is live. For instance, if someone called and said, "Hey, the bus didn't get. It's 8:30 now. It's supposed to be here at 8:20." And then we could call up, and then we could tell either A, the bus was there and made the stop, or B, yes, the bus is here and it's probably will be there in about 5 minutes, type of thing. But our dispatchers are typically on the radio. It's pretty busy in the morning. We do sometimes have them on the screen, and we're looking, but you have to pull up each route individually. Type, you don't see like a whole screen of there's 12 buses right there.
Because that's the way my company is. We've got about 20 trucks.
You can see all the vehicles.
Every one of us all the time on the map. So that's why it seems to me that would be one area maybe
I think that's coming. I think we're going to be there at some point. Right now we're not there at this point, but I think that will be there.
And there's no onboard like navigation type of thing
Like a
for like the
TomTom or something?
turn-by-turn type thing to eliminate some of this? Because if you handed me this to drive somewhere, it'd make me nuts, because I'd rather see a map. So,
Understand.
do you think at some point in your industry that's going to be standard?
I don't know. You know, obviously, there's argument both ways, because some people say if you have this, the driver is driving like this, you know, whereas if you had a GPS, you know, the argument is, well, are they going to be watching the GPS or are they going to be watching where they're going? But both cases, you're kind of looking at something as opposed to the road. You know, being a bus driver, the object obviously is to have your safety is obviously always paramount, and you're supposed to have your eyes on the road. There's been a lot of talk about having, you know, a lot of people have it on their phones, and drivers will use their phone sometimes and, you know, try to figure out their own directions, depending on, you know, usually it's in the special needs situation where they're looking for a house or something like an address. But it could be coming. That could be coming. Like the argument, like I said, the argument is you should have your eyes on the road. But if you're looking at a route sheet, there's really not a lot of difference in that.
Well, and even if you could do it for a sub-driver, you know, if dispatch or somebody had it programmed, then, you know, okay, we're going to have a sub-driver tomorrow morning, even if you had just a small number of those that were, regular drivers don't need a TomTom.
Yeah.
They know where they're going. So, but, you know, in the case of a sub-driver, particularly the scenario that you actually mentioned, which is they were supposed to turn right and they turned left, that, you know, having a pre-programmed route on an electronic device might actually lessen this amount of time for a sub-driver.
One thing we do have that I didn't mention is some drivers do like maps, and we can create obviously a map with pins on it versus just a direction. So we have done that for some of the drivers because they'd rather have a map as opposed to the turn-by-turn. So we do that. And that could be coming as far as getting an actual physical GPS on the bus too.
You know, it's
ones
funny,
that
I was going
talk.
to, go ahead.
There's some that talk, like the phone will tell you, will speak to you and
Talk
say,
to you.
turn in 300 feet, turn right. So, I don't,
No, it's probably coming. I would agree.
Well, and I guess I just was going to follow up on that, because to me, if I saw this, I mean, I see this, I've seen this for 20 years, and I still don't know what it, you know, but if it's a map, you know, again, I know we're beating a dead horse here, but if you have a situation where you have a sub, I guess the other question, and I don't mean to be facetious, but I'm kind of following up on something Shannon said, you know, do the drivers, like, if they're a sub, do they know the streets? Because if you're just like a sub and all of a sudden you're here and you see turn left on Oakwood, left on Blackwood, I mean, are they told where the streets are? Because that would make it, I don't mean to sound, but I mean, that would make it.
And that's a very good question. And when we talk about sub, it's not just grabbing somebody and throwing them in a bus. Typically, it's our drivers who are, quote, sub-drivers. And we don't purposely assign them routes because you know you're going to have absenteeism or whatever you might have. And usually it's obviously not a person who just started with you. It's somebody who's been with you, who's been out driving, you know, in the areas. And so, yes, the typical is they are familiar with Westmont or the area that they're in. Now, do they necessarily know every side street in the district or anything? Maybe not. But they are familiar with the majority of the streets, and that's the reason why we, quote, have them as a sub-driver, because they've proven that they haven't gotten lost and they do know areas and they can follow directions and they're good about those type of things. So that's who, quote, a sub-driver is. It's not just, hey, let's get this driver and throw him in a bus, so.
Can I ask about, Matt, were you just going to say something? Okay. I just have a couple questions about the sub-drivers. So, and these are very general questions. So is there a certain sort of pod of drivers, sub-drivers, that are specifically for CUSD 201 or District 99 or, you know, for the various districts that you service? Or is it just a big group of sub-drivers, wherever you need them, you put them? The point I'm getting to is, could part of the training be driving the routes and driving the routes in District 99, if that's where that sub will be focused? Or is it just a big pool of substitute drivers that go wherever you need them?
It's typically the pool and of whatever customers or districts we serve out of that location. You're correct, 99 or 58, excuse me. And, but, you know, there's no reason, I mean, I don't know how many subs we have at this point, just 5 or 6, yeah, that we have right now. And the reason they are subs is they do know both areas. You know, do we just have, you know, we haven't really talked about just having 2 just for Westmont or 3 just for the other districts, but it's something we could be thinking about.
I understand that could be difficult, and even, you know, with that number of subs, they probably, you know, I don't know how broad an area you service. With 5 subs, I would think they could get to know the routes in 58 or 99 or 201, you know, all of those routes, and really have a thorough knowledge. You know, it's just a suggestion that maybe that becomes part of their training.
Oh, it's a good suggestion.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, we'll follow up on that.
Okay, just a few.
With the drivers, they do actually go on routes as part of their training.
The subs.
No,
Oh, the train, yeah, the regular drivers. Yeah, Shelley was just, the regular drivers before, you know, all the training that they're doing, while they're learning how to drive a bus, they will also go on the bus with another driver and learn, quote, their route that they're going to be doing. So before they actually take over a route, they've gone with a driver and gone over that route.
So for the record, if somebody else is driving, I would never, ever, ever be able to find my way there again, because I don't pay any attention where I'm going.
Unless you're driving.
Unless I'm driving.
Right.
A few really quick comments. I mean, one is, obviously with the tools, I know we're not telling you anything you're not already aware of with the tools and what they're capable of and stuff like that. I mean, I do think it's a really interesting idea, having a GPS available for subs. I think the biggest advantage to the GPS would you know, partially showing them how to get there, but really, like you said, you make a wrong turn on here and you're done. How do you get back? But whereas on a GPS, it could say, hey, you just made a wrong turn, it can point you back. So I think that's a pretty cool idea. But the other thing, you know, Gary, on top of what you were saying, I'm in the rail industry, so we do a lot of stuff with trains and all that, and we can also say, is this train at a specific point in time, and make it raise an alert and stuff like that. All helps with communication, but I also recognize, obviously, that's all money. I also, you know, respect what you're saying about, hey, these are difficult positions to fill and to fill reliably and things like that. You know, you need people who are going to be there. Part-time is more challenging than full-time, and you also need people with certain demeanor to put up with those kids on the buses. So I respect all that, but also I do consulting. So my biggest thing, you know, from my experiences with my clients is if I'm not meeting expectations, they may or may not want to hear why and all the other stuff, as long as 2 things. 1, what's being done to correct it, and 2, is it actually corrected? You know, it's like a sorry doesn't mean anything if you keep doing what you're doing. So I think some of the things you're saying about improvements in communication, I think that's going to go a long way. I think the one biggest thing that I really thought was, I mean, late is bad. Some of the stories about no-shows altogether, that's
unacceptable.
That's horrible. But, you know, I'm happy to see some things are in motion. I hope there's more improvements coming. You know, I think, you know, some investments in things that, you know, some more tool sets. Like I say, it's money, but then so are the penalties.
Well, and I'm all for some type of GPS. I don't know. I have to check. I know DOT sometimes has issues of what can be in a bus or what can't be in a bus,
Sure.
and as far as what driver, you know, doing their job safely. But I will follow up on that, definitely.
Okay. Great.
I just want to say one more thing. I want to say I appreciate that you all came here tonight, because that to me shows that your willingness to come here and talk about us and share everything that you're trying to do shows your level of commitment to CUSD 201. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. We appreciate that.
And I guess the final thing is, you know, just like our job, you know, nobody calls us on a daily basis to tell us, thank you for doing your job today. So I think it's the same thing, you know, the time you're going to hear about it is when there's an issue. And so I guess part of what we have been asking about, it seems like it's when it's the sub driver, So I think that's why there's all these questions about that we need to have faith that, like Matt's saying, that, again, that it's heard and that something is being done to fix that. Because it's interesting, like you're talking about whatever the Department of Justice says or whatever. I would find it interesting, that was
Department of Transportation.
Transportation. Sorry, wrong career. So it would be interesting to find out if somebody thought this was okay and not having a device that tells you.
True.
Because how can you do that? So I guess, it just comes down to the fact that, just like all of us, we're not going to hear. I think we try to take it for granted that this works, that the kids get to school. And when it doesn't, it just always seems to be the same reason. And so, I do appreciate how much time that Kim has to spend on this, and I would like to see her time freed up on something else.
We would too. We agree.
Thank you.
We are going to continue to do the tracking that we're doing.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll continue through the end of the year,
Okay.
and that will, we'll have, obviously, I want principals or secretaries, if there's an issue, to let me know right away, but we'll collect that data on a weekly basis and then keep track of it. Again, we'll just kind of reiterate with the administrative team about, especially like, some of the athletics and extracurriculars that, we should be checking on our end too the day before to make sure, that, so Westway should be communicating to us. If we haven't heard, we should be communicating with them, make sure, yes, that, bus is scheduled for this trip at this time or whatever. And so that we're all okay. I do want to just make one comment. We did reach out to, the athletic coaches at the high school and just to see what their experience was as well. I guess in some instances, no news is good news. So I'm assuming that all the coaches we didn't hear from, everything was okay. But we did have both of our boys and girls basketball coaches respond and, tell me that this was the best transportation year that they've ever had for their athletic season. So, obviously, they did a great job with the railroad crossing, and everyone, amazingly enough, when we had all the railroad issues, everything was on time. So whatever they did, whatever stops they pulled out and dug deep to make that happen, we want to work on trying to make that part of the daily routine. And so we know it can be done in, what I would call a very difficult circumstance. So we know it can be done. It's just a matter of making sure everyone's aware and keeping that as part of their focus. So, and the other thing I went through, I save all my emails and went through our last year with First Student. We had, Matt had made some comments last time as well about, we had a lot of issues. We had issues with being overcharged as well. And, had to go back through and audit bills and recoup some money and things like that. We also had a lot of behavior issues on the bus. And I know if I say this, something will go wrong, but we have not had those issues this year so there were a lot of things. I went back and was reading emails and things from prior years, and there were a lot of things. So, obviously we'd like to not have any issues, but, and we're working on these and addressing these, and I think, it's now everyone's forefront, and they really do understand what our expectation is. And so, I think if you, allow us to continue to work with it, monitor it, and we just expect, that level of service now and next year as well if we're able to renew the contract. So,
Can I add one piece to that, Kim? I think I would, to the extent that all of our parents are out there watching, because I know they are, I would also say that if parents, it is great to hear from the administrators if there's anything, but I think it's also important for parents to let the powers that be know if they know of a situation, because, that's just another piece of it, that we need to hear from, I know whenever anyone says anything to me, I direct them to the person they need to. So I would also ask that if parents know of a situation that they should, I don't know, can I say it? Go right to you? I mean,
It's fine.
I don't mean, or the principal or somebody, but I think as we're keeping track, I think that's.
Well, and again, the GPS, I mean, even when we had the one issue at the high school, so we're looking back and seeing, okay, were they not picked up at that apartment, and was that really the case? Well, they were there, it was a couple minutes early, we should have that 5-minute buffer, but, so it's that fine line between, okay, if I get there at 7:18, do I, move on, or do I wait the 2 minutes or whatever? But, kids should obviously be there a few minutes early, just in case the bus is running a little bit early. And
I just want to make a real quick comment on the stops. Years ago, we used to train the drivers to, let's say there was a route and there was 10 stops. What we did is we said, you're supposed to be at that first stop at 7:05. So don't leave any earlier than 7:05. Here's the time you're supposed to be there. But then once you start the route, then go through the route. And so they didn't necessarily, quote, time every stop that they made, but the first stop. So it's a little different, obviously. It's a lot more technology. So you're able to get stops for every time and all that type of thing. But we still have drivers who have been with us a number of years who, they're trained, they get to that first stop. They don't start until that time, but then once they get the route going, they just go through the route. So I just wanted to bring that up. That could be why they're 2 minutes early to a stop as opposed to right on time. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
Want to go to Ebert? Do you want to talk about it?
Sure. Yeah, I can.
So the next item on the agenda is Ebert, and we are going to just have a quick discussion about that first before we move on.
Right. With the Ebert reports, and I realized from some of the responses I received via email that people appreciated all the information, but it was a lot of information all at once. And so I talked to Marie and then sent out the email that even though we have all the information tonight, we'll break it up into 3 meetings so that we can focus on a couple areas at a time. And so tonight, the focus will be the pool study and then staff development. And then on the 8th, it kind of ties in on the 8th, if you remember, on an annual basis, the media specialists have to present for the media for the library grant. And so along with that, we'll do the technology and the media services. And then on the 22nd, we'll do the class size organization, the summer school, and gifted reports. And so that's how we'll break it down. So we have this evening the facilitators for the 2 reports that we're going to see this evening. Kevin Weck did the pool study, and Amy Quattrone facilitated the staff development. So Kevin's going to lead off with the pool study.
Good evening, everyone. I'd first like to thank Mr. Carey, the school board, for giving me the opportunity to present the pool recommendation for EPERT for 2014-2015. Just a couple of recommendations here are our committee members, Mary Kay Caparelli, school board member, another school board member, Mara Notbush, and then also Kim Anderson, our business manager. We're all part of the committee for us this year. The decision-making process that we went through for this recommendation included reaching out to both private and public agencies to see what interest level there was for the pool facilities for Westmont High School. Some of those include Westmont Swim Club, the Park District, the Illinois Principals Association, just to get some feedback from them, Steve Cashman, our school architect, Mike Mayoris, our building and grounds, Adam Cremo, he's the Westmont Swim Club, he's kind of the head guy of that. Also, Mr. Fleck from the Westmont Park District, and then Bennett Academy, and other outside agencies. Some other outside agencies include District 88 that we also reached out to. However, there was not a high level of interest for the pool facilities for next year. We had 3 options that we came up with that we decided that were probably best for Westmont High School for the pool facilities. Some of those include option 1, which is the current state that we have, and it's current contract that we have for the pool facilities. Right now, we have a $12,500 stipend that is a paid position for the school year. And then during the summer, that same person also is able to bring in hourly wages based on the amount of pool facility usage that we have during the summer. Second part here, financial renovations and maintenance would be District 201's responsibility if we stayed with the current contract. So any renovations that we need to do in order to keep up to code, including depth of the pool, length of the pool, any renovations or maintenance to it, that would be part of our responsibility if we stayed with the current contract. Option 1 requires District 201 to operate the pool facilities as a financial cost. So right now, it's difficult to put a specific dollar amount on the pool facilities in terms of exactly what dollar amount it costs us and what we're bringing in to see whether or not we're at a specific dollar amount. But right now, we're running at a deficit, meaning it's costing us, District 201, to run the pool under this current contract. That's option 1. Option 2, this would be a partnership with Westmont Swim Club. Now, I've spoken with Adam several times regarding what his idea and what his vision is for the Westmont pool facilities vision over the next few years. He's provided us with kind of a rough draft in terms of a contract, in terms of dollar amounts, and what some of the responsibilities would include. Now, that's just a rough draft because obviously it would take negotiations and conversations between both us and Westmont Swim Club to determine whether or not that was a good fit for us. But right now, Westmont Swim Club would endure some of the renovation costs. They would set aside $5,000 a year for pool facilities that would have to be allocated specifically for the pool facilities for any renovations or maintenance. It would be an increase in pool revenue, financial gain for District 201. So right now, with the contract of the rough draft that Adam's provided us, it would be, we would actually be in the black in terms of financial gain. The dollar amount is yet to be determined because that's still something that would have to be discussed with the Westmont Swim Club to determine what we would expect from them in terms of finances. And then lastly, annual contract in the next 3 months, request a decommission study. We spoke with Steve Cashman to find out what were some of our options in terms of decommission studies. That study would cost somewhere in the neighborhood between $25,000 and $50,000. So that would be something that we'd have to come to the school board, ask for permission to pursue that study, and then move from there. But right now, that is the second part here of the option number 2. So it would be Westmont Swim Club, and then also the possibility of going with a decommission study in the spring of 2014. Option number 3, the decommission of the Westmont High School pool. That would be, if we decided to go with that for next year, approximately a $50,000 to $60,000 cost to CUSD 201. The engineer would need to inspect the pool structure along with the groundwater level, because right now where the pool facility is, the water level, it's kind of what Mike Mayor said was kind of like a swampland. So if we were to decommission the pool, the structure of the pool is at jeopardy because of the water level might actually ruin the facilities and the structure of that ground. So we'd have to have an engineer come out and actually give us the okay on that. A fence or a railing surrounding the pool for safety purposes, we'd have to establish that. Demolition or new construction would require board approval for requesting Steve Cashman's architectural estimates. So anytime that we work with Steve Cashman, we have to obviously pay him for his time, and we have to have him come in and give us kind of several options in terms of what we're capable of doing and what that would cost us. And the architectural study would cost between $25,000 and $50,000, which would provide facility options and construction costs. So that would be option number 3 in terms of if we decided to close down the pool facilities. Working with our committee, we came to the conclusion that our committee's recommendation for the school board tonight would be option number 2. And this would still take some conversations and dialogue between us and Westmont Swim Club, our lawyer, our attorney, in terms of what our expectations would be with Westmont Swim Club. But that would increase our revenue for the pool facilities. It also would eliminate the paid stipend position of $12,500. And then we could possibly request the school board permission to move forward with that study in the spring of 2014 with Mr. Cashman. Anybody have any questions?
I have a couple of questions. First thing is, if we go with option 2, I think I read here that the school would still use the pool during the school day.
Yes.
So won't we need a staff person?
Well, that $12,500, that is to organize kind of the open swims on the outside of the school day times. Right, so anytime after 3 o'clock that we have open swim for the community, that's typically when person is in charge of supervising and organizing that, making sure it gets out to the community.
Okay. One other question.
Sure.
My understanding from several years ago when we were talking about the pool is that one of the reasons we don't have a swim team at the high school, and one of the reasons that the pool is perhaps underutilized, is because the pool is not designed according to the specifications required.
Right.
So is the obviously the swim club uses it for practice facility, but in order to increase utilization or have additional revenue,
Right.
money
See,
that's gonna have to be put in?
right now, it's not up to code in terms of the regulations for IHSA, so we are unable to actually host any events there. And that's the same thing even for the Westmont Swim Club. They use it for practice facilities. And that's, I've spoken with Adam. Adam's very passionate about the pool facilities. He's been working with Westmont Swim Club for a number of years. So he has a pretty strong vision as to where the pool facilities could go in the next 5 to 10 years. However, he said that as of right now, they keep changing the codes or the regulations for using a pool because of concussions and safety reasons like that. But he said that our pool facilities are perfect for his vision. It's just a matter of he can't host events there. That's something, if we wanted to pursue, it would cost a significant amount of money in consideration for that.
Competitive events.
Yeah.
right, either swim club or the state school.
Right.
So, yeah.
For depth and length. There's some regulations for the length of the pool and then depth because of concussions.
One of the things, though, our pool is ideal for is because it's indoor and it's heated, our swim lessons. And I think there's a huge opportunity out there with the right marketing plan and getting to the right audience. Again, it would be great for some water exercise classes and things like that. So I think there are a lot of opportunities that are out there. It's just making sure that someone is making sure that people are aware that facility exists to utilize it.
Can I ask a question just on that? So what you're saying is the pool's not regulation?
Right.
For
Right now, we
competitive-
cannot host IHSA or.
So just
swim
as
club.
a question, like, no one's ever reached out to anybody before on this. And so part of the discussion of what we're doing now is trying to figure out what we're going to do. So, like, whose job would that be? Like, if we, what you're saying is, I agree.
To increase utilization.
Using, like you're saying, the fact that we have a pool. So now is it going to be someone's
Well, that would be.
job?
Well, no, that would be, if we go with Westmont Swim Club and eliminate the stipend position,
Right.
Adam would be doing that.
Okay.
Okay, in the ideal world, the stipend that we're paying, that's what should be happening for that stipend position.
Okay, so if Westmont Swim Club does that, do they get if they're gonna start offering all these,
Yeah, in one
do
of
they
the,
get the money?
well, one of the proposals, yes, but we have not really, Adam and I have had several conversations about this as well, and we have not really fine-tuned that whole financial discussion, so.
I think that would be something that we could assess next spring in terms of seeing what was the level of participation with the pool facilities, increased revenue, and that would be because we would have an annual contract with Westmont Swim Club. We could then revisit it after 6-7 months to see how well the facility is being used. Is this something that we can increase in terms of the dollar amount? But right now, I think that's where we have to discuss with our lawyer and Kim in the district office to find out where is it in terms of the costs that we endure every year, and then how much money do we need to expect from Westmont Swim Club to cover those costs, and also look at some of the future renovations or facility upkeep. So we'll have to probably revisit that next year, during the winter to see how things are going.
We expect this to be a year-to-year contract, or would we be?
Well, I'm sure they would like it to be longer term. I think for right now, for the first year.
Sure.
Do a 1 year
Yes.
and then kind of see where things are. And again, see what type of utilization. Obviously, we would keep track of, you want, some kind of, a little bit of an open book policy to kind of see what kind of revenues they're bringing in and utilization. There's some further discussions that we need to do in that contract in terms of, helping with, offsetting some of our, expenses if we have some repairs or things like that. So there's still, it's a very basic proposal to us that's going to take a considerable amount of time to go back and kind of, get finalized.
Well, I'm assuming that if their utilization is much higher, as Marie implied, that our cost is higher. I mean, electricity and heating and, this type of thing. So I'm sure that in the course of the process of talking financials with them,
Right.
the contract language has to accommodate that.
Custodial time and things
Right, all
like
those
that. We have to
things, all
keep
those
up
things that are
all in
impacted by more
consideration.
activity,
Right.
even if it's not our own activity. Actually, particularly if it's not our own, right? Nights and weekends, we currently don't have a lot of expense related to that space.
Right.
And we would have
Right.
increased heating and lighting and custodial and all those things if they're ramping up programs, which would be
Right.
awesome, by the way. Be great for Westmont to have someone in there really, making an offering to the community. I think that's very cool.
I guess my question kind of goes along those lines, because I'm reading in here that this budget that you've put together does not include the current custodial salaries, the gas, the electricity, the water, the sewer, and I'm also going to assume insurance, because I don't see it listed here anywhere. So it's not really going to be a break-even situation, right?
For option number 2?
Right. I mean, we're still going to be losing money because we're not really including all the money in our current cost for this pool.
The current budget that you're looking, that's for this year. But looking at next year, some of that would be lost because you have, in that current budget, you have the $12,500. You have some of the facilities, we have lifeguards. Some of those other expenses are in the current budget. We would lose that as an expense against us.
Right,
Because we wouldn't have to
but we're not-
provide lifeguards or.
We haven't added up the true cost this year, though. and
No,
don't
we
even-
have, Gary, if you look on the EPERT,
I'm looking on the chart right now. It says at the
so
bottom here,
right,
these costs do
the
not
third,
include.
the third bullet underneath that, annually approximately $31,000 is spent in routine operational costs. So that is custodial, that's heat, that's the twice or every other year pump. That's all of the costs that came out.
Is that included in the 85,475?
No.
Because that's current budget right now in terms of where we're at, including all the other pieces in terms of operational costs.
I'm glad you asked this, Gary, because I found this hard
Right,
to understand.
Right. It looks to me like there's $31,000 not included in this $85,000, which you're saying if we deduct the $44,000, we deduct these other things, we get the $60,000, we're actually going to be breaking even. But I'm seeing, if clearly I must be reading it wrong, but it looks to me like we're still going to be out $31,000.
Gary, some of the 31.5, we don't have systems in place where we can actually monitor the cost of the water for the pool or the electricity for that area or the custodial time. So Mike Mayoris put together, based on, some estimates of, square footage and things like that, what those costs would be. So in our budget, I can't delineate those things per se. And so I put together estimates of custodial time based upon the kind of routine maintenance and walkthroughs that they do. So that's about, again, another $31,000 that is not, you're correct, included up there. Some of that cost we would have regardless of who's running the pool, or even if you decided to decommission the pool and mothball it for a year, you're still going to have to do some of the, electricity and heat in that area. You're going to have custodians, going through and doing checks of the area and things like that.
So can I ask then, is the cost of the pool 85 plus 31?
Yes.
But Kim, right now, but
Right
you're
now.
taking out the salary, right?
Right.
And you're taking out,
So the salary would-
capital, non-capital is not part of the pool because that's budgeted but not necessarily spent.
Right, well, it's still part of the budget. I mean, we don't necessarily spend that amount each year. It's
Right, so I think the
budgeted.
problem is that it looks as though we're spending 85,000 plus 31,000, and we're not.
Well, I just asked that question.
Yeah, I thought
But
you
we're
just said
not, are we,
were.
Kim?
Well, it depends on year to year. I mean, that's what we budget.
And as far as the salary number, that drops by how much?
It will drop by the 44,000. Because that 40, and plus the benefits, that is strictly for pool workers. The 44,000 and the 4,725 are the pool workers. It's not the custodians.
Okay, so if I guess what I found confusing on this was, I thought the Ebert plan was to find out what we currently spend and then if we add or decrease. So that's what I found this kind of, I know what you're saying, it's in the budget, but I guess the question is like, okay, so you have a budget, but what does it cost us to run a pool every year?
Well, okay, but so some years I don't have any capital expenditures. This year, because everything seems to be costing more, we had some repairs that we had to make to the pool, and we just had those come through, I don't remember, but several $1,000s. So some years I might not, I might only spend $1,000 out of the capital equipment. This year, it's probably gonna be $5,000 or $7,000. So it kind of varies from year to year.
But as, I think one of the discussions why this even came up in the first place was, we've got a pool, and just like anything else that we own in our home or school, whatever, everything needs renovation. So I know that we have to have, we have to discuss, we have to think about that as to in terms of running a pool, as we would do anything. So at some point, everything would need some work. So I guess part of the question was, if we, so the numbers here, so what we're saying is if we, let's say we have the 85 plus 31. So what is that?
It's about
116.
16. So then what we're saying is, if we went with Westmont Swim Club, we would then not need 48.
Correct.
Okay.
So it's not breaking even then?
Well, remember, this is preliminary. We still have to have the conversations with Westmont Swim Club.
Right.
And where we're at right now, we would be having
Right.
greater
And Gary,
loss.
I guess the real determination is how much of the 31,000 would you have, whether you're operating it or mothballing it? Obviously, if you're mothballing it, you're not going to have that whole 31.
Right.
What portion of it?
Sure.
I guess for me, it's hard to have this as an Ebert conversation, because the true Ebert I shouldn't say true Ebert, but I'm saying what we've been talking about is if we take a program and we decrease it by 10% or add 10%. So now I think what I'm struggling with is, how do we make any determinations on something that we don't really know? Because we don't know, and what we're saying is we don't know what Westmont Swim Club, does that make sense?
And just, and I think we had this conversation when we went through and identified different programs. The pool bubbled up to the surface because, as you were alluding to, the pool is reaching the end of its usable life, in terms, and eventually the district will have to invest significant dollars into the pool. And so the question and the reason, and so the Finance Committee thought that the pool study should be a priority, though, even though, and it's not going to fit, if you notice, it doesn't fit the EPERT template like some of the other programs. But that's because ultimately, for the district, it comes down to whether or not we're going to, I would phrase it, stay in the pool business. That's what it comes down to. And so you're either mothballing the pool, or if you're going to continue maintaining a pool, are there other options to lessen the impact to the district? And so, part of the study was seeking other possible partnerships. And so seeing it, there are some high schools that have an actual swim program, but no pool. And so, Kevin Weck, as part of his process, he did reach out to some of those programs and see would there be any interest in utilizing our pool, and obviously there would be some type of financial agreement for that. And then the other possibility was, and Westmont Swim Club has always used the facility. They've approached Kim on a couple of different occasions and more or less said, that your pool could be used to a greater extent. There really are some opportunities there, and we would really like to partner with you on those. But those conversations really were productive. And so now, though I think when Westmont Swim Club hears the possibility that 201 might mothball the pool, I think that heightens their sense of urgency, and I think now they're willing to really have some serious conversations with us. And so you're absolutely right. It's not a mere increase by 10%, decrease by 10%, but we're looking at this in terms of, okay, if we know that down the road we're going to have to make some investment in the pool, are we willing to continue maintaining a pool and then partnering with Westmont Swim Club? And then and part of that partnership would be, that we would seek is assisting with those costs for the pool. Because definitely our students benefit during the school day as part of our physical education program, but then before and after school, the Westmont Swim Club, they would benefit. And so there's a mutual benefit there, so let's share the cost of some of those things as we go down the road. So you're absolutely right, it's not going to look the same, but it's trying to get to that question, do we see if we can make a mutual beneficial partnership with another entity, reduce the exposure of the district, and still maintain a pool, or if we don't think that that's a realistic option, then start having a more serious conversation with Steve Cashman about looking at the mothballing of the pool.
No, go ahead.
The one thing, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, Kevin, is I jotted down, how does this benefit our students? I mean, isn't that what we're in the business for? Mm-hmm. And to say we use it for PE classes and they get it, okay, so there's one thing, but we don't have an athletic team that uses it. We're struggling to find somebody, and we do have a partnership already with the Westmont Swim Club to help us with this cost. And it seems like, I remember a couple of years ago we were talking about, and as you touched on, that the pool's coming to the end of its useful life. And so I was thinking of, what about the major expenses? We're talking about, some of the minor things that are just kind of yearly or every other year you fix, but how much more are we going to really get out of this? And in the end, we're going to decommission it because we're not going to have the money to put extensive renovations into it. So we're still struggling with this, and I just don't see it benefiting our students. And I don't know, and I know I've heard it said, well, it's the only pool that Westmont has, and it's a great benefit or asset for the community, and well, maybe so, but is that our responsibility as a school district to make sure that Westmont has a pool that they could use if they wanted to use it, but don't apparently use it very much? So I guess I'm not a huge fan of sinking tons and tons of money into it. I'm certainly open to hearing more.
Yeah, I think, can I just address that real quick?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Because I have no problem saying that when I went into this, I don't think anyone has been more vocal about decommissioning the pool than I have, because I completely agree with you. I do not think that this district is large enough to support the pool. And I think given that this year's EPIRD is a jumping off point, we have, right now, our only options, we have 3 options. One is continue to sink money into it. 2, sink money into it but recoup the majority of those costs. Or spend a lot of money, option 3, spend a lot of money to mothball the pool. So until we know what those absolute costs are for option number 3, doesn't it make sense to put the money in and have somebody offset those costs while we're coming up with a study to decommission the pool? Because I don't think we have a very I don't think we're going to have the pool for many more years. I really don't. I don't think we can support it. I think the costs are going to become unsustainable. Absolutely agree with you. But right now, we're faced with having a pool and either recouping our costs or spending a lot of money to mothball it while this study is being done.
Well, ultimately, you'll have to spend money to mothball it when that time comes. At some point down the road, if the pool reaches its end of its life, you're going to have to mothball it. So that is like a fixed cost, as I see it. At some point, we'll be doing that. So it's a matter of, do we want to keep lumbering along, losing money on the pool? Or do we really have a viable plan? It doesn't sound like, it sounds like it kind of got something that might improve a little bit on what we're doing now, but it's still going to be a money loser.
All right, can I, so Gary, I just added up the expenses, taking out the salaries, so if we're not paying our employees. So expenses, so that is the purchase services, the supplies, the capital outlay, and the $31,000. So that's $56,050 of expenditure, and then we would get $60,000 of revenue. That's the initial proposal from the swim club. So it is a break even. And it does cover, though, the custodial and, the utilities and things like that. Now, one of the other things, and kind of stealing some of Kevin's thing, but over the last couple of years, I had conversations with Adam about this, and we haven't really pursued it because to me, it wasn't, lucrative enough, and again, not sure what we're doing with the pool. But Adam has lots of connections, and with the whole swimming program, and there are, there's a group out there that, wants to make sure pools aren't decommissioned and things like that. So he has talked with me about the possibility of, finding some other resources that might be able to come in and help do some of the things to our pool. And that's one of the things that, maybe this might, if I've got Kevin to help me and stuff, that we can start pursuing some of that and having some of those conversations to see if there are some other entities out there that might be able to work with us and help offset some of those types of costs for the pool, so that we can bring it up maybe to a standard that where we're not having to dump a lot of money into it to keep it a viable thing for the community. So, and we won't know unless we investigate it.
But I think, Kim, what you just said, with all due respect, if we're going to spend a lot of time and money just to cover our costs for the community, I think I would like to just, piggyback on what Joel said and what Mary Kay said, is that I think we have to start thinking about what our job is. And I think the EVERT program is supposed to be for our school and our students. And I remember asking, I know we currently use it for PE, but it's not a graduation requirement to have swimming, right? If the school didn't have a pool, you wouldn't. That's not a requirement. So I guess my concern is that we keep, as long as I've been in this district, which is a really long time, there's this constant discussion about maybe we could do this stuff with the pool so that we keep it. And I guess the question is, why? I agree with Mary Kay. If we're going to, I think you're right. If we have to do a study as to how to decommission it, let's get some income while we're doing it. But it's like we're talking about using more. Well, we're not going to benefit from it other than to have this pool. And I can see why other schools wouldn't want to use our pool, because it's not regulation size. I wouldn't spend any money to rent it if it's not, if you've got a swim team. And for some reason, we've never had a swim team. I know years ago, and maybe it still happens at the junior high, there's like a 6-week mini thing. But I guess the question to me is, if we really start why we are talking about this in the first place is, what do our students benefit? So if there's all this maybe out there, if we look really hard, I guess I wonder why we're doing that.
I have a handful of comments. First of all, I think, to be clear, I'm sorry, it is or is not a state requirement or anything like that for ourselves. Do we require that the kids take a swimming PE class somewhere?
Right now we do.
We do, right?
Right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's excellent. I went to Lyons Township, okay, big school. I knew it was a requirement there. We all had to take swimming. At the time, there was only a pool at one campus. Now they've added it to both. One kid in my class somehow managed to get out of that requirement. And before I was done with college, drowned in Lake Michigan. Not to say he wouldn't have if he had swimming lessons. Lake Michigan can be bad, right? But there's irony. I know a lot of adults afraid of the water because they never had the exposure growing up at all. They're afraid to go on boats. They're afraid to do various different things. I think this opportunity, given that we don't have any other community pool, is a great opportunity, for our kids to get that exposure, to get that comfort level, whether, they learn sufficient enough swimming to really be safe in a treacherous situation. I don't know, but I think it's pretty important. I look at it and I say, okay, if we're talking about Westmont Swim Club being able to run a lot of this stuff, I don't see where we're spending a lot of time and energy and money and stuff like that. It sounds like they're able to pick a lot of that aspect up, and we could actually operate in the black. To me, if the longer we can do that, even if we put off decommissioning it for a couple of years, we've built up some funds, which to me seems preferable to decommissioning it now and just being out all the money. We could put money in our pocket and make the decision a little bit later. Although, we got to do what makes sense. We got to do what makes sense fiscally for the kids, everything else. But I mean, my hope would be that we could maintain it, or if not, make it better, make it more usable. Again, I look at Lyons Township as an example. I worked as a swim instructor there for 7 seasons. When they had registration for that, you had parents camping out around the block. And that you had people coming in from other states. We had other schools from other states coming in to learn about the swim program, but it was wildly successful and profitable. I look at that and I say the swim program we've had in the past, I looked at it, my daughter took it when we were really young because I had nowhere else where I could go and I could take her and learn how to swim. So we brought her there, and they right off the bat, they gave her the little water wings and stuff, and she became completely dependent on them and afraid to swim without them. So with a good program, I think it would be an enormous draw. But really, the point is, again, not to provide this for the community, although I think it's nice. But if it's a revenue source for us to get funding for other things that we want to put the money towards, I think that's a wonderful opportunity. One of the questions I have with this is, where does the park district come to play today? Do they run the open swim, or do we run the open swim?
No, so the park district, right now, we run the open swim. Okay. And that's part of this paid stipend,
right.
$12,500. But I spoke with Bob Fleck over at the Park District, and he mentioned that he does have interest in terms of utilizing some of the facilities. However, he doesn't have as much of an interest as Westmont Swim Club, or he can't bring in as much revenue as Westmont Swim Club can. So I've actually, I've spoken with both Bob and Adam and put them in connection with one another in case they wanted to create a partnership amongst themselves in order to kind of drive some of these programs and offer, other outlets for the community members.
Cool. And does the stipend, do we run the swim program, right? And
so the open swim is, the open swim is just a certain time frame in terms of like Tuesday, Thursday, Friday night. Mm-hmm. And, there's a couple of things on the weekend. But other than that, the Westmont Swim Club utilizes the pool facilities other than that.
So do we not do the swim lessons anymore?
We do the
swim lessons, yeah.
The lessons we do, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that's an area that we could see more utilization or more participation from the community.
Are there any looming large expenses? Like, again, we just had a bunch of repair work and things to be done. Do we see anything else looming that we know is imminent, or?
Yes, there is a number. We've had a study done about 2007 in which they gave us basically everything that needed to be renovated or fixed. And yes, there are some, bigger dollar amounts and some big maintenance responsibilities that will take place in the next 5 to 10 years that we'd have to do to be able to sustain the pool. And those numbers we talked with Adam about and said, hey, these are some of our concerns. If we sustain the pool, how are we going to pay for this and how are we going to make this happen? And that's part of the proposal that Adam provided us, was a dollar amount that he'd set aside every year. Now that dollar amount is something that I know that we want to discuss and figure out if that's sufficient or not if we go with option number 2. But there are some looming expenses for the pool facilities that will take place in the next 5 to 10 years if it is sustained. And I think one of the things that we want to, keep in mind is option number 3 doesn't necessarily just go away. That is something that, we will take into consideration if we go with option 2, getting that study done and having that at least all the information pertaining to decommissioning the pool, what the cost would be, and then what some of our options would be for those facilities. But we could do that study, and that study is probably going to take about a month to 2 months just to get the architects out, the engineers out, to give us all the information we'll need to come up with a research-based decision on that.
Sure. I think, and I don't know if others would disagree with me, I think if money were not the issue, if we were going to say, hey, it's break even whatever you do, I think people would say, given the choice between keeping it and getting rid of it, keep it. So at which point we're saying really it becomes a matter of, does it make financial sense to keep it? And I would be, like I say, if we're able to do this and keep it in the black for a couple of years until we make a decision and then we go either way, or if we're able to maintain it, again, in the black, long enough to say maybe invest more, maybe it pays for itself, maybe it actually becomes a revenue source, things like that. We're not obligated to the community, but it's an opportunity for us to bring in more money or, to get, I think, again, community relations is huge for us. So even though we're not obligated, we don't have to provide the service to community. I think the more we can, I think the more community involvement we get with the schools. And, the same with the musicals and everything else that we do. The more we get other people in, I think that's a big plus. So just a few of my thoughts.
Before you leave that, I want to just piggyback on something he said. So there was a study done in 2007 that showed that does need to be.
They came in and gave us a study, and they said, specific things that needed to be either fixed or replaced in order to sustain the pool.
Okay, and do we know, because that would probably be an interesting thing to have. Do we have a number on, because if we're talking about the pool's at the end of its useful life, so do you know what that number is, if it's big money?
Right, and that was just an estimate that was provided to us by Water Technology, and that it was a little over $1 million.
Okay.
But that's for everything.
That's for everything.
Yeah.
So in option 2, which, by the way, I agree 100% that if we can provide anything for the community, but so if we're looking at what option 2 is that we have Westmont Swim Club paying rent of $60,000, and they would put aside $5,000 a year for capital pool expenditures. I guess I wonder where the $1 million comes from, because from what it sounds like is, and I don't mean the $1 million. I mean
right.
A big chunk of money.
Sure.
So the question comes in is that, I would love to have something that the whole community could use, but again, I think I go back to what our start point here is. So if Westmont Swim Club wants to come in and run a lot of these things, I guess my question goes back to, again, if we're going to have all these classes and all that, are they going to be the ones that benefit from that?
Right, well, and that's, again, some of the details that we have to work out, and really, right now, it's kind of, which direction do we pursue? Obviously, that contract would need a lot of work, and, I don't think $5,000 is sufficient, it's not adequate by any means. They do have some other partnerships, though, that may be able to provide services or do some things, because again, there's a group that's, trying to make sure that pools like this don't get shut down, because they know that people don't have some of the means necessary to do some of those major renovations. So what it would do is we would start having some of those kinds of conversations, have other people from the swim club involved in those, and then from maybe some of those other partnerships that Adam is talking about to come in and kind of see what that viability is, and what other kind of, financial backing or, in-kind services or things like that might be able to take place for us.
And again, I go back to the same question from a financial picture of the Westmont Swim Club, because they need a pool, and so they're going to spend all this time and energy and potentially doing that. But what is our end game? I guess I could keep going back to that. So what is our end of that? That we have a pool,
right?
That we keep a pool, and I would imagine that there really are groups out there that want to keep a pool.
Right, and I think it's important that that facility as it exists, you can't use it for anything else. So if you want to decommission the pool and then make it like an auxiliary gym, that's going to cost you, what was it, $500,000?
Yeah,
$600,000
$500,000 to $600,000.
To what, $1 million?
$600,000 to $1 million, and that was 10 years ago.
Okay, so I don't know where we have that money to do that either. And then if you want to, there's been a lot of talk about a field house, but a true field house will not fit it within the perimeter of that building. So then you're talking about, additions and things like that. Roughly 5 to 10 million is just a very rough estimate for that. So,
I see that
kind
as a
of like-
completely different conversation than
Right.
pool.
But even to mothball it, again, there's some issues, and we have to have a study done because of that low water table and some of those things. You don't just, drain the pool and lock the door and you're done.
Like I
There's
thought.
Other things that have to be done.
Way more involved.
Well, that's like I said, I that's why I like kind of what Mary Kay said in that, like,
Yeah,
there
and
were,
she,
so I think that's maybe the way to go is to continue to get some, to use it for the year while we study it.
Right.
But it just seems to me that we're really putting a lot of time and energy on.
The road
trying to
ends
get
at the
West-
same spot, it seems to me.
Well,
It's just a different time frame.
And my sense, though, is I don't want to spend $60,000 to mothball it when in another year, we may be spending $1 million to put an auxiliary gym in there. Why mothball it? Why waste, that step, spend $60,000 to drain it, have a structural engineer come in, check out the footings, check out the pump, and I mean, it's built on a floodplain. That's the issue. So structurally, they have no idea what's going on under that pool. So there's a lot involved in shutting it down. I thought, take out a wall, back in a truck, and dump cement in there. And it's not that simple. I mean, I really thought it was going to be that simple, but it's not that simple. So, but I think it's a waste of money to mothball it than to wait just to create then, when we have an extra $1 million, then to create an auxiliary gym. That doesn't make sense to me. To build a railing around an existing empty pit, to put alarms on the doors so nobody can get in, to the hydrostatic pump and, to maintain that while it's in mothball status, while we're waiting to completely demo it for $1 million. Why
a
not,
waste. That's
why
dead
not
space.
maintain, if it can keep us whole, maintain this while the study's done. I mean, let's be honest, none of us built this pool, none of us created this pool. This high school came to us with a pool that is not regulation size, so it can't really be used. We're not sustaining any swim teams. It's not, it's not an ISHA pool. So this is what we have. And, I have no interest in maintaining the pool, the district maintaining this pool. I have no interest in doing that, but it's going to cost us a lot of money to shut it down. So while we're figuring out how much money and how we're going to get that money, I think it makes sense to have the Westmont Swim Club come in here and maintain those costs for us for this year.
So we can break.
Well, I
even.
mean, I'm not thinking of shutting it down like tomorrow, but I'd like to see a decision get made and a path be set for where this is going, because otherwise, some board down the road will be having this same conversation again about what should we do with that pool? Now it's leaking, and it goes on, and we know there's an end point to it.
And I think if we came in here with this, if the EPIRT had happened last year and they commissioned a study to the cost of decommissioning the pool, we'd have this number and this number, and it would be a very easy decision. It would be a much easier decision, but we don't have this number. Really, we have, do we maintain the pool ourselves? Do we spend $1 million to create an auxiliary gym, or do we have Westmont Swim Club come in and maintain the costs and maintain the pool for a year at least until this study is completed? And then next year, when we're having this conversation, it's going to be a lot easier. And we're going to know what we're up against.
I like that.
Well, if I
Because
can just chime in here
Yeah,
for a
go
second,
ahead.
please. A little bit of history here. Some of us weren't around in the district 5 or 6 years ago, but I sat in the high school auditorium listening to Adam from the Westmont Swim Club make a great presentation about how he was going to save our pool. And here we are, 5 years later, having the same conversation. So my only comments, I guess, would be that we are kind of in the same position all the other boards we are. We are between a rock and a hard place because we have to do something. Okay, I agree, Mary Kay. I don't think we should just close it down this year. I think we should, commission that study, and we should keep it open until we can figure something else. But I'd like to see Adam's plan I'd like to put put a deadline on him. Let's, if you really have a viable solution, then let's get together and let's see what it is. I don't want to be here next September, next November, and still not know exactly what's going on. Because, you were there, Marie. You remember that meeting. I remember that meeting. And now I'm hearing the exact same words again. No offense to Adam. I'm sure he's a great guy. But if it didn't happen then, why should I suddenly believe it's going to happen now? Okay, that's all I'm saying. So, but what choices do we have? We can't just close it down. There's concerns about an empty pool. There's other costs that are involved there. That doesn't make sense to just lose money, because that's exactly what that would be, because we'd have to spend money to close it. Okay, so but we can't. I agree. The eBird system had it taken place a year ago, we'd be a year farther down, and that's where this pool needs to be, is a year farther down. But we can't talk about it now and then just kind of poo-poo it like previous boards have done since Adam made his last presentation. There either has to be a real viable solution there with the Westmont Swim Club, or there's not. And we still don't know that answer.
Even if there is a viable solution with the Westmont Swim Club, we're still coming to the end of the useful life of the pool, and then there is no viable solution with the Westmont Swim Club.
Well, as Kim had said, though, there might be groups that we don't know about that maybe Adam does, that I would like to hear from if they're out there. If somebody wants to come in and help us restore our pool, I'm open to that. Okay, I certainly don't want to spend $1 million. It would have been nice to have seen those numbers in this report as to what the real problems are or issues are. I don't know if what we fixed last summer was on that report or not. That would have been nice to know. Okay.
I know that, and I don't know about you, Mara or Kevin, I'm looking at this in the next 12 months, or the next year's time.
Right.
In the duration of this contract. And one of the things we were pretty adamant about in our committee is that we want the study done so that next year at this time, we're not caught with our pants down and we know exactly what it's going to cost to decommission the pool. So, I don't think this is going to die on the vine now. This is a hot topic. And, I was computing the numbers before I even got onto the board. So, clearly the pool has been an issue for me for a very long time as well. So I get it. This is something I've taken very seriously, but looking at the numbers, this makes the most sense to me. So.
Well, I guess just to go on the record, I'm more with Matt. I think and I've said it before, although I'm not overly passionate one way or the other, but I think if you have the asset of a pool, if you can make it viable and maintain it at some cost level, which it doesn't seem we've been able to do, okay, but if there's any way we can keep it, I think it's an asset to our students, and I do think it's an asset to our community, but we're going to need some help on it. And obviously,
Absolutely.
We can't carry the weight of the financial cost of the pool all by ourselves. And not just, I'm sorry, $5,000 is a nice amount to set aside every year, but in 5 years, it's only $25,000. It's nothing towards the major repairs of a pool.
Right.
Sure, that'll give you money for a quick repair or a new liner or a paint job or whatever you might need, but that's not, that pool needs a whole lot more than that. What is it? It was built in '75 with the school, right? So, and they've been, according to Mike Mayoris, they've been patching it and patching it and patching it and patching it, and sooner or later, something more than a patch needs to be done to that pool.
Can I ask a question? So, and not to stop any kind of conversation. So what we have on the table here is, and we don't have any action items here, so we can, we would have to do that at a different board meeting, but can we do that? Like, I'm like it, and Mary Kay seems to have, and obviously you guys were on the committee, and so you guys have been talking about this more than this past hour. So can we do that? Can we enter into agreement with Westmont Swim Club for a year while we do commission this study and find out what it would cost? And then, again, now we're actually third rail again. We're going in, we're going to talk about these hot topics and then have a conversation next year about long-term, because I think that's part of what we're doing is long-term. Like, if we can have a pool, it'd be fabulous. But what do you do when you hear we're at the end of the life of the pool. I guess that's where I keep coming back to. And yeah, I was at that meeting too, and there's all these plans, and yet we've never seen them. So I think it would be good for, if this board is going to make a decision at some point, it would be good to have Adam's plan, the plan, from the engineers, the plan from 2007, because in 2007 it said $1 million, it's probably more now. I mean, so I guess it's kind of almost like.
Plus, how many years have ticked off the 5 to 10 years? Is that from that study?
Yeah.
Well, we're
I mean,
really
to do that
close.
study.
According to that study, then we're really close.
To do that study, it's going to cost, we're looking at $25,000 to $50,000. So right
So you
there.
want to do it again?
That's going to be an expensive study, so that's going to take some time. It's going to take a month to 2 months to have that study completed and provide us with that information.
Wait, are we talking about the same study? What study
No.
are you talking about?
You're
Mary
not
Kay?
talking about the same study.
Okay, that's where.
This is the
Okay.
study they would like to see.
No, yeah,
And is
right,
that
but
5
even
years?
to have that study done, that's going to cost us money also to have every piece in terms of what needs to be repaired, what needs to be replaced, to have that taken care of for us. That's still going to also be, that's going to take some time, and that's also going to be a dollar amount for us also.
So
What study are we talking about?
That's the
study was
repair.
What are we
That's the
saying
2007 water technology study.
And that was how to bring the pool up to.
Everything, yeah. Anything
So,
that needed to be replaced.
If that study,
pool.
we can assume that cost is only going to be more than what's in there. So
Probably.
why would we pay for another study on how to update the pool if we know it's going to be more than $1 million?
Kevin, I think it's possible over the course of the last 7 years, some of these things have been addressed. I don't know whether they have or not. I think the study that we're talking about is the study to decommission the pool.
If Westmont Swim Club would not work out, what would be our options after that? And that would be the study we'd want to have taken.
We want that study done regardless of whether or not Westmont Swim Club
Right, that's what I'm saying.
works
A year
out,
from now, we'd
because-
want to have options.
Yep.
To be able to make a
Yeah, that's what
decision
I'm,
based
that's
off
the
of
study
that.
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'd take a month to 2 months, and that would be something we'd want to get going. We'd have to get permission from the board in the spring to have that study done. It could happen this summer. We could have all the information we need to have for next year, and then see how the relationship with Westmont Swim Club goes. And then a year from now, we'd have a lot more information to be able to determine whether or not it was successful or unsuccessful, and we can move forward from there.
So if we're going to spend all this money studying how to close it down, I hope we spend at least as much time and effort figuring out how to make it a better asset as well.
Yeah.
I generally agree with Matt. I actually do believe that the pool can be an asset to the school district as well as the community at large. And if financially it turns out that we can't sustain it, then we can't. But I'm a little uncomfortable going into it with the premise that we're going to spend 25 to 50 grand figuring out how to shut it down. I'm a little uncomfortable with that premise. If we're spending 25 to 50 grand to come up with two viable options, keep it going and grow it and blow it out the door, or shut it down. If we're going to spend $1 million on a practice gym, actually it says $500,000 to $2 million is the number that's in the document. If we're going to spend that on a practice gym, well, we could spend $1 million on the pool too, and what do we gain by doing that? So generally, I think that can be an asset to the district and the community, and I'd like to know if we could come up with a viable plan. We keep throwing around this term, come to the end of its useful life. Well, I mean, pools only come to the end of their useful life if they're not updated and maintained. I mean, we've been maintaining as much as we can. We just haven't been updating at the level that we need to. But, pool doesn't actually hit a wall. If you continue to do upgrades and maintenance and the things that you need to do, the pool can go on. And there's going to be some amount of money that's going to be necessary to do that, and we need to determine, would we rather put $2 million into a practice gym, or would we rather put $1 million into the pool, and I don't know yet. Right. I think in the short term, I'm willing to accept the committee's sort of reaction to the details that they went through, but I do agree that in the longer term, we need a little more to make a longer-term decision. We don't have quite enough here.
The 2007 study also, that was everything, all the bells and whistles. So that $1.1 million was not necessarily everything that has to be done. That would be if we wanted, to go to the nth degree for our pool.
Did it make, okay, that's a good point. Did that make it a regulation size IHSA pool?
Right, so that would be considering regulation. And I've spoken with Adam about making the pool regulated in terms of meeting IHSA requirements. He knows enough people in terms of the not decommissioning pools that they could come out, and he said that they looked at that study and said it's grossly overestimated. So he's talked about what that would cost in terms of bringing it up to code, and he said that, it wasn't anywhere near the dollar amount that they had in that study.
But I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that right now, it's not IHSA regulation.
Right.
So,
Was that part of the study?
yeah, so it would make the pool.
But it's changed, even the IHSA study, or the regulations have changed since 2007. So even what that regulation would have been is not the same as what it would be today, because of the depth of the pool and concussions and things of that nature. They've now it's got to be longer, there's got to be more depth in terms of the
That's what I'm
diving area.
asking. So,
Right.
so if we did this, there are
New things to consider.
new things to consider,
Yes.
which have a dollar amount.
Right.
And I guess I go back to, I was happy to see in here what the cost would be for, another facility. Another gym, not a
Right.
field house.
And all those vary also depending on whether or not you keep the structure, if you don't just wipe it down and
Right.
build, 4 new walls.
And I guess I go back to, the question is, in terms of, I absolutely agree that, we should keep it going until we make a decision, but in the long run, I've been at the school at different times, and I know this isn't going to end anything, but like there'd be, the flag kids are in the hallway practicing and stuff like that. So if we had more space for our kids to use. So, I mean, I don't know, I guess I agree that we don't have enough information now
Right.
to make absolute decisions, but can we keep having these conversations so that we can ultimately make a decision? Because, yeah, we've been hearing that we're going to get all this stuff for a long time.
I think the next step would be, this spring, would be requesting permission from the board to have the study done by Steve Cashman. And then after that, we could have some of that information provided to us, by midsummer. And that would give us a good opportunity to have conversations regarding what some of our options were, what some things that we could do with the facilities. And then, that could be in our back pocket, seeing how things go with Westmont Swim Club. A year from now, we revisit it when the contracts are, up for renewal. We have the conversations with Adam, see how things are going. Who knows, maybe, Westmont Swim Club really, gets the community involved and heavy participation, utilizes the pool facilities, and a year from now, we say we want to go for another year. But, that's something that we'll be able to look at specific dollar amounts, how the pool facilities were utilized, and what are some of our options.
Whatever we do, in the end, we're stuck with the costs. I mean, the Westmont Swim Club may find somewhere else to practice at some point, and then we've pinned all our hopes on this, strategy, and now we're stuck with the pool that leaks or whatever.
This is all contingent on Westmont Swim Club and us having an agreement on a contract. So that those conversations still have to take place this spring for dollar amounts and language within the contract.
Hence the decommission study.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure we were talking about the right study, because there's two studies, so
That's just that was a facility study.
But I'm saying.
The water technology.
Yeah.
I think I'd also like to know, and I don't know how we would get this information, but I think I'd like to know what the community overall thinks. Do they want us to try to save the pool? Do they not want us to try to save the pool? When I say the community, I don't just mean our students. I mean, it'd be nice to hear from our students and what they think. But I think the greater community, somehow, we need to figure out a way to get them to weigh in, just so that we know. I mean, I know our responsibility is to the students, but we are a public body. We do, people pay their taxes to the school, and this is something we're going to be spending money on. So I would think somehow we need to find out what the people of the district think. Do we want to try to save the pool or not?
We did talk about that. We talked about
I
putting
don't know
out
how
a
to do that.
survey.
Right?
That'd be something we could do in the fall of next year. When we start to have the study done, we'll
That's all.
have.
I think
we'll
that'd be
have that
another
information,
important part
but
of
that's a valid
information.
point. I think that's important to make sure we have community involvement in making a decision based on how things go with the Westmont Swim Club and how that study turns out, because we don't necessarily know what those dollar amounts are going to be from Steve Cashman and what some of the options are for us as a district.
So does that,
I'm questioned though.
do we all seem to be comfortable with where we are now?
So is the direction then to get more information from the swim club on details and try to come to a more tenable agreement, financial agreement? Okay.
And then there'll be a discussion, in the near future
Yes.
about it.
So after we're able to have the contract or the finalization of that contract with Westmont Swim Club, we can look at dollar amounts from a district standpoint for the $25,000 to $50,000 study. We can get that going, by the end of the school year here.
Okay, but that'll have to come before.
Everything would have to come before the board.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm questioned out on this topic.
Do you want to ask it now, or?
No, I said I'm questioned out right now.
Oh, your question, I thought you said you had a question
No,
not on this
question,
topic.
no.
Okay. Okay. I guess I would say thank you to the pool committee.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, guys.
Kevin.
Thank you.
Of your work. Okay, the next Ebert discussion.
Staff development, Ms. Quattrone.
All right, staff development. Good evening. My name's Amy Quattrone. I'm the assistant principal at Westmont Junior High, and I am the curriculum facilitator for the district, as well as the facilitator for the staff development EPIRT process committee. Before we start talking about why professional development is so important to our district, I just want to give an acknowledgement to our three teachers that were on this committee with me, Carrie Bauerlein, Laura Riley, and Kim Danielski. They really gave me valuable feedback, and their insights were very important into this process. Also, my teammate, Mr. Jonak and John Jonak and Denise Matthews, they were my right-hand people in this process, and they really made this happen. So also thank you to Shannon Hancock, who really spearheaded this with me and gave me the vision on how to move forward. Okay, prior to our committee beginning to analyze the data in the EPIRT process, we wanted to look at the research to help guide us. Now, we know what we're doing within the district for professional development, but we wanted to measure ourselves against what best practices are in education. So we researched and we researched. We read different books, we read different articles, and we found that it all comes down to essentially effective staff development is focused on student achievement and student achievement only. Michael Fullen, he is a lead researcher in the field of educational change and leadership. He said that staff development is essential for student achievement, and it should occur in a focused manner and a systemic manner. And what he was really talking about was a cycle. He sees staff development occurring in a cycle that in the beginning of the cycle, it's introduced to the teachers, the buy-in is there, they see how it fits into their teaching and how it fits into student need. And then as you move on through the cycle, that's where you bring people into the district to really get a greater arena for the teachers, where more teachers can be maximized by this professional development, rather than sending them out into different venues individually, bringing consultants, bringing workshop presenters into the district to give global professional development across the district. So you move into that cycle, and then after that, in the classrooms, the teachers are really using the PD that they learn, or the staff development that they've learned, and we have coaches inside our district, which we actually already do have those reading specialists and instructional coaches in our schools. They would help the teachers implement and watch the teachers, help support the teachers along with the administrators grow through that professional development process. So again, it occurs in a cycle, and this is a model that we have moved to in District 201 these past few years. Instead of sending teachers out as much as we used to in the past, we're bringing in consultants to help us on different initiatives like reading, and we are using our institute days for our teachers to teach each other. So they'll be presenting in different workshops, and even our administrators do as well. And so our teachers go into these professional development workshops, and then they can collaborate with each other afterwards. So it's a really great model for them to learn the new and best practices in teaching, but then to actually take it back into their classrooms and be supported by the coaches and the administrators. Now, district-wide, we are governed by our strategic plan, and this was created back in 2012 for the 2012-2015 school year. This plan outlines goals to increase student achievement. And these goals are directly supported by our district professional development. So in light of this, we really feel, our committee feels that our staff development should promote collaboration, should be related to the current needs of the teachers, provide ongoing assistance, such as the coaches and the administrators in the classroom, and allow teachers time to practice these skills. We really feel that in order to support this vision of the strategic plan, we would like to see more consultants coming in, or more of the consultants that we already have coming into our district to teach us more of the latest and greatest best practices. We'd like to see more of our instructional coaches inside the classroom, along with the administrators, to support teachers in that fashion. Currently, we offer professional development in 2 steps: an individual step for the teachers to take upon their own professional development, and then the building district step. So for the individual step, CPDUs, which just stands for Continuing Professional Development Units, those are awarded by the Illinois State Board of Education. All teachers need to accumulate a certain amount of CPDUs each year. And so teachers take it upon themselves to either go to workshops or maybe have a student teacher in their classrooms, so they're helping to foster that type of educational growth. Different ways, action research, but that is really incumbent of the teacher to do on their own. Then we also ask our teachers to go through individual growth plans called IGPs. So each teacher in our district creates a SMART goal, 1 or 2 of them for themselves, to increase student achievement. They then meet with a partner in the beginning of the year when they create the goal, and a partner teacher, and they talk through the goal and create ways that they're going to assess the goal. And then at the end of the year, they meet with their teacher partner again to see if they've met their goals. And again, that's directly related to student achievement. Our building district step, this is where we provide opportunities for our teachers, and we provide them through institute days, through SIP days, through PLC time. This is, again, that model that I'd been talking about earlier that we've moved to, where we're really starting to provide collaboration workshops in our district, within our district. So more people, more teachers are hearing the same word. We, of course, always get evaluative feedback at the end of these workshops and these PDs, so we know if we've met the teachers' needs and if there are further needs that need to be met. So let's talk about the data. As we went through the process, we knew that we needed to analyze different types of data to understand what our needs are for staff development. The first type of data that we looked through were the ISAT tests and the PSAE, so more of our standardized assessments. It's important to note that these scores, they actually compare the 2011-2012 school year to the 2012-2013 school year. We do not have the ISAT data that the kids just took this March, so this is from last year. As a district, math was increased by 1%, while reading decreased by 1%, and there's more information in your packets, more graphs that you can take a look at, but we basically remain neutral, a composite across the district. However, we did score significantly above state standards in the ISATs for those 2 years. And then the PSAE, our high school did a really nice job. The composite PSAE scores increased by 8% between those 2 years. NWEA MAP, that assesses math as well as reading comprehension, and I'm sure your students have talked to you about it. That's where they sit in front of the computer 3 times a year, where they're benchmarked to find out how they've progressed in both reading and math. And we have seen significant increases in both math and reading for all schools. Ames Web, that is for reading fluency from kindergarten, or maybe first grade, elementary, let's say elementary up through the 8th grade. And all of our grade levels have reached their targets for the 2013-2014 winter school, the winter benchmark for our school year. With that, we also took a look at other data in the form of professional development surveys. Our district leadership team, which we call the DLT, and our CAC, which is our Curriculum Advisory Council, throughout the year they furnished different surveys to teachers to find out what were their needs for professional development and how did they like what they have received during different institute days and SIP days. We had approximately 1,140 participants through these different various days. We had teachers teaching teachers. We actually have consultants come in. In your packet, it's outlined a little bit more, but we have Ryan Glaze and Christy Moore who have come in to teach us about the comprehensive literacy model. Christy Moore is working with our reading specialists and our instructional coaches so they can learn the information from her and then spread it across the district and go into those classrooms to help. We have a new teacher induction program. The Curriculum Advisory Council is helping to spread the word in professional development to their peers, as well as all of the information that we look through in the PLCs, the data, and whatever professional development we're offering in those. So what does the data tell us? Well, the data told us we do still have work to be done, even though we have made these gains. We know that we need to target certain demographics. When you look deep into the data, it shows that we really need to take a look at our ELL population and how we can best serve them, our economically disadvantaged populations, our student with disabilities, and as well as our students with gifted needs. So those are groups of students that we would really like to target more with our professional development. We'd also like to continue work with our consultants, and we'd like a place to access student achievement that's in one area. So right now we have to look in different areas to find all of the data on student achievement. So if we wanted to see MAP scores, we'd go to one place. If we wanted to see ISAT scores, we'd go to another. We're looking for a central location to house all of that information so we could go right to it immediately. And we are actually working on that as a district through our Skyward program. So, currently, now we're getting into the EPERT Level 2. This is where we're currently at. Approximately $57,545 of our district budget is allocated to professional development this school year. We did have $86,479 in grants, but we took that out, and so the bottom line is the $57,545. Again, this is where we're currently at. This is serving the model of us really putting more money into bringing people into our district to serve a greater population. If we were to reduce the cost by 10%, our budget would be approximately $51,791 after a $5,754 decrease. If this occurred, we'd like to actually decrease the amount of money in the dues, fees, leases, and tuition category. And this is because this is the category that we give teachers money to go outside of the district, and we pay for different fees for workshops. We'd actually like to decrease the money in that area so we can keep the money in the salaries where we're bringing in consultants and other workshop providers into the district. So that would bring us to the $51,791. If we were to expand, if we had that option, in expanding by 10%, this will give us $5,754 to allocate towards bringing more professional development and follow through to our district. And of course, we all know the bottom line is student achievement. And so if we did increase, our hopes would be that we would increase student achievement as well. So our recommendation, in light of the research that we did, our strategic plan, our past history with professional development, we recommend to increase the staff development budget by $5,754 to elevate student achievement directly through the use of on-site professional development workshops and consultant work. Any questions?
So the salaries listed on here, that is not really staff salaries here, that's outside?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
So then what's purchase services? Is that the outside consultants also?
And what about fringe?
I'm going to have to defer to Kim on that one.
What does fringe come in for?
Salaries would be our staff.
But we pay.
Consultants are purchase services.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So our salaries, but then I guess I'm going to have to ask who are we paying the salaries for? Because I thought that came from our FTE in the buildings.
Like the DLT or things like that.
District leadership, the workshops and things that we do.
Okay, so the salaries are paying for the workshops in-house?
Right.
Okay.
Is that a stipend to the people, or this is a portion of their?
Stipend.
It's hard to say no to $5,700 to increase student achievement. Would we get a 10% gain?
Am I promising? That would be the hope.
You know, it's interesting because, you know, those of us that have ever gone on any of these kind of things in our work, it's really cool when you go to like an all-day seminar and you know you get all like excited and all that. And then you come back and it's, if only one person went, how do you share all that information with your team? So I like hearing that people are coming in so that everyone's getting the same information. Because to me, that would be, I think, more bang for your buck, such as it is. So you have everyone hearing the same thing. Like if all of a sudden we decided, you know, math is going to change, you know, that everybody hear it as opposed to one person going to a meeting. So from that regard, I appreciate. I can say I appreciate that, and that would happen as opposed to sending people out. Not that that is not necessarily a bad thing, but if we're talking, I'm talking district-wide.
Right, we'd reach more teachers.
If we're looking to.
Yeah, I agree. If you reach more teachers that way, right? Or more in your professional learning, if one person comes in and teaches 10 people, it's better than one person going out, getting the information and coming back.
Right. And I guess it does kind of go back to the conversation that we had before about the PLCs. And so if we can get back to, I guess, letting our community and all of us know what it is that are happening at those meetings, I think that's helpful. Because, you know, there's all these acronyms and all these things, and, you know, there's all the alphabet soup and everything, but I think it helps to find out how does all of that, like, help in the classroom with the students, because that's our ultimate goal. So it would be good to hear that feedback.
I think it would be good for us to receive some sort of, like, if somebody does go out for a workshop or a training or something that, you know, I know at SACID we receive, in the communications part of our board book, we receive like the little flyer that describes the course that they took. Just so you have an idea, so we as board members have an idea of the types of professional development that our staff are attending, and the topics and the subject matter and that sort of thing. Just for an overview, it's kind of hard for us to know when you say the word professional development, what does that mean? And if I have some information about it, I'll know, oh, somebody went to hear this, you know, or brought, I know we get some information, but it would be good to get more consistent information on that so we have a better understanding of what all of the professional development avenues that we're pursuing.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Do we, and another question that came to my mind is you were talking that, I think it's the Consortium for Educational Change. Do we work with them?
Yes.
As far as professional development goes?
Yes, we actually had them come in when we first started talking about the Common Core state standards. They came in and helped us unpack the standards and really look at them in a deeper way.
Most of the CEC, most of their focus the last 2 years, a lot of us have been focused on teacher evaluation because of the legislation, we all have to develop new evaluation tools and that are tied to student growth. And so there's been, last year there was a team that went to sessions to help develop the tool. This most recent year we had a team going to learn about that whole student growth piece and what type of assessments can be used that districts and schools can use. And so most of their work has been geared towards the teacher evaluation tool in Danielson.
Okay. And then I know SACID also has some services that they have available for member districts as far as providing professional development, and so I'm assuming we utilize those or constantly review their menu of services to make sure we're taking advantage of any of their opportunities.
Yes, we actually have a wonderful consultant from SACID who's helped us through our RTI process, and she's worked with the teachers at the junior high specifically through their data teams, and she's wonderful.
Very good.
So
just because it's not explicitly written, if we were going to reduce by 10%, we would be trying to spread that out so the
Yes.
impact is as minimal as possible anywhere.
Yes.
If we're going to increase by 10%, we're going to look at the things that you identified as being the most needy and try and put some resources there, or are we?
We're going to take a look at that regardless. We're going to look at all of the needy areas to assess where we're going next year with our professional development, but that's regardless of the increase or the decrease or staying the same. But we're going to put we'd like to put more money into bringing in consultants to help us with those areas and others that we identify.
I guess the only other thing that I would, I guess from the perspective of this is I like what Joel's idea about in terms of that, but it would also, I think, be good for the board to get a report quarterly or something about just what is being, what is being in-house
Yes.
training is happening,
I agree.
specifically. Just because that helps, to know.
Absolutely.
It's a good piece of information to hear what it is, like what Kevin, you were just talking about, some of that stuff. So a lot of that's, not a lot of,
Sure.
a lot of that's, some of that's administrative. But in terms of student achievement, it would be good to hear how, and, I'm not a thesis, but like, how do you take some of that stuff? Well, like, what do you learn from that? And
How are you applying it in your
Exactly.
classroom and with our students?
exactly. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so, again, this will be decided.
Right.
There'll have to be a vote at a future date. Are there any other questions?
I just want to say congratulations, looking at this, getting almost $90,000 in grant money and other funding for professional development. That's wonderful. I don't know where all that comes from, but Kevin and Amy and Jack and John and everybody who goes out and gets those grants, congratulations. That's a lot of money.
Where, do we know where?
No, yeah.
Some of it's Title I, some
Yeah,
is
it's-
Title II.
Okay.
The AP
Idea
grant.
grants, and those are all things that are, so obviously the Idea grant, the early childhood, Linda does those, the Idea preschool, and then we have Title I and Title II, and then we also have our LIP program, our Title III, and then the AP grant, $20,000 of that AP grant is for professional development.
That's great.
So,
Would that be something that would continue? These,
think-
we hope so.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
they said a third year, so, I mean, we will have to apply, but I
Yeah,
believe they're
yeah,
going to fund a third year.
very good. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Before we get into the next topic, would anyone like to take 5 minutes? 3 minutes? I see a no.
No?
Anybody?
I'm
No?
good.
Keep going? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, the next topic, staffing.
Staffing, what we have is the proposed staffing for the 2014-15 school year, and then, if the board is comfortable with it, then after we get through our discussion items, it would be on the agenda for action. But basically, similar to last year, when the administrative team sat down to look at staffing for the upcoming school year, one thing that we know that we have to do is grow our dual language program. We've made a commitment to that. We have a kindergarten classroom now, so next year we have kindergarten, first grade. There is a desire to increase teacher support in the way of instructional coaching. And then also, even though we're going to, and Amy referenced this in her report, and then in a couple of board meetings, we'll talk about the gifted report, but just, again, some of the conversations that have come out of that, because as we're going through the EPERT report, just so that you know, we do have conversations as an admin team then with some of the findings and so forth. And so, and this has always, I think, been a struggle for us, is addressing needs, the need for gifted enrichment opportunities. Again, if you look at our financial projections, we're projecting a deficit for next year, and then because of that, we want to try to work in within our current FTE, so our current staffing levels that we have for each of our buildings, really try to work within those to accomplish the things we want to do. And so just briefly going building by building, at South, our Early Childhood Center, right now we're anticipating maintaining the current level of staffing. The only thing that would possibly change that is sometimes even at that age level, students come in with IEPs, and because of the IEP, there may be a need to change some staffing. At Manning, we'll have a retirement, and we would replace that position. Manning is looking at that position a little bit differently, and would like, right now it's 0.5 kindergarten. That's our section of morning kindergarten. We won't know until we get through the registration process and kindergarten screening if we are going to have the same need. Possibly we may end up with full sections of all day, and there is some FTE built in for that. But if we still have a half day, then we would be employing somebody to do a half-day kindergarten, half-day intervention, and then one of our other teachers would pick up the reading support. And then as a result, we would need to pick up a part-time ELL teacher. And then because of just the number of sections at Manning, currently we have 4 sections of 5th grade. There would be 3 sections feeding in, and so we would reduce 1 section. And then we'd be looking to hire an instructional coach, gifted, and that would be a new position for the building. But again, we can do it within the FTE within the building. And we would be developing a job description for that as well. At Miller, we again have a retirement, and because we would be looking to add the ESL, or the dual language at 1st grade, a teacher would move into that 2nd grade section. And then again, working within the staff there are some staff who have requested some changes in their assignment. And then again, just looking at the numbers in 4th and 5th grade, we would have 1 section of 4th and 5th grade, but we would need a 2nd section at 2nd grade, and so a teacher would rotate up there. And then also we would want to maintain the same level of reading and math support that we currently have. And then again, at Miller, we'd be looking to hire an instructional coach, gifted teacher, and that would again be able to be accomplished within the current staffing levels at Miller. At the junior high, I should have probably opened with this, that as a district and an administrative team, we do appreciate how supportive the board has been. And last year, if you remember, was a different conversation because we saw a need for additional staffing at the junior high and the high school. And so that drove a lot of our decision making. And because of that investment, there really isn't that same need to invest at the junior high and high school. But again, we're maintaining current levels at the junior high. And again, looking to add a 0.5 instructional coach gifted. And the reason why both the high school and the junior high we're looking at 0.5 as opposed to the 1.0, we currently feel that we have in place individuals that have the skill set that we are looking for in those instructional coach gifted. And those individuals also, though, have other responsibilities. And so at the junior high, it's our media specialist. She's already taken on some of that instructional coaching. And so with a little bit additional support there, we can then address some of the enrichment pieces. And the same thing at the high school. We have an individual who is working on interventions with students, but also working on the coaching of staff. And so again, with a little bit additional support, we can augment that. And so essentially you end up with the same 1.0 of instructional coach enrichment at the 2 buildings because we currently have in place individuals that can do that. At the high school, and this is not unusual for a high school, especially a high school our size, so much of what happens is driven by student choice. And so you're seeing a lot of, an increase of 0.2 in family consumer science and 0.2 in psychology. But again, but there's also a decrease in other areas. And so overall, again, it's not a net gain of FTE, but merely moving individuals around. And then also because of retirement, we're able to do something a little bit different with the staffing levels. And then again, the 0.5. So overall, we're not increasing FTE, but we think we're addressing some of the needs within our building. And I know that was kind of a quick overview, but if there's any questions.
Just a real quick one for clarification. So the junior high and high school both are 0.5 for the instructional coach gifted, but that's not the same person. It's one person at the junior high and a different person at the high school, or that's one person that splits their time?
Right. Right now, the plan would be one person that splits their time.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a full-time person, and they would split their time.
Okay. Thank you.
I just have to say that it's got to be hard to put something like this together with all that, so thank you. I am happy to see that at Miller, we are moving the dual language program to first grade. I know we had talked about that we would do that, and I understand it's been successful at Miller. So it is wonderful to see that is going to be moving to first grade. So that I like a lot. I guess I have a question, if any, unless anyone has a question. There's an action item on here to do this.
Right.
So I guess the question is, do we want to have that as part of we have other staffing discussions to have in closed. So I guess I'm asking if anybody has any questions, if we want to put that off.
I would prefer, because I have some questions that are for closed.
Post-closed, because of just specific staffing.
Sure.
Marie, can I ask one other public question, though, is you just mentioned the dual language. So we're going to now have to have a kindergarten teacher that's a dual language teacher and a first grade. Is our current dual language teacher moving up with the kindergarten class, or is that person going to stay kindergarten and we will now have a new first grade teacher that's teaching dual language?
The plan is the kindergarten teacher would remain in kindergarten, and then we would have a new first grade. But if you look at what we're considering, it would actually be a current staff member that would move into that.
Okay, so if there aren't any other questions for this, right? We'll move on to the next thing. All right. Did you have anything else, Kevin, for that?
No, that was
All right, board budget input. So the question is that, again, we're developing a budget for the 2014-2015 school year. And so the question is, does the board have any suggestions based on our areas of what we know, and did we want to have any input as to what we want to, I guess the word I should highlight there, consider in the process? So does anybody?
I have nothing.
I'd love to see home ec back at the junior high.
Home ec at the junior high?
I really would.
At the junior high or the high school?
Junior high.
I have a couple of questions, probably for Kim. So our tax collection rate this year, I didn't go back and look at all the years, but it looks like it's higher by a fair amount. I mean,
no, not a fair amount.
Really? I mean, $300,000 or $400,000 potentially?
Yeah. Yeah, we just got the levy, but I haven't had a chance to really look at it. I know it is just slightly higher, maybe about $40,000 more than what I had projected for next year.
Okay. So that's my first question. My second question, not related to that. So we're a couple of years in a row coming in certainly better than budgeted. Right. I mean, there's sort of a conversation about deficit spending versus budgeted spending versus actual. And I'm wondering, is there anything that we're going to be changing from a budget perspective where we won't see such a significant difference between budget and actual?
I think we talked about some of that. First of all, we knew most of our salaries, at least we knew them in the ed fund this year.
Right.
We didn't know them in our O&M fund. But so this is the first year in 4 years that we've known salaries.
Okay.
Or, pretty close. I think we didn't have all of the WESPA yet, though,
No.
did we? So actually, we haven't known all our salaries, but, so there's some movement there. Our, benefits, some of our insurance, we know has, been a little bit better. We know now what that is. So in some of those things where we maybe had some cushions in for salaries because we didn't know where our contracts were gonna wind up, they're a little bit tighter this year. But, as I referenced in our financial presentation, we've had some unanticipated expenditures in terms of special ed and things like that.
Right.
So, and those, I've got to still take a little bit of look at because it goes in, every outplacement bills on a little bit different cycle. So some we've already maybe paid in March, we've paid April, but some we might only be paying February. So it takes quite a bit of time to go through and kind of look and project that. So that's the area where I have the most concern about where we're going to wind up. I think in salaries and benefits, we're looking good there. And then it's a matter of, our spending deadline for the buildings is this week. So then we'll see what kind of, surplus we have there and if there's any things that, things that we need to maybe be looking at and spend maybe a little bit more of that money, but we'll have a better idea in the next couple weeks about exactly, what that surplus may or may not look like.
Do we know, well, I know we don't know, are you changing at all how you're projecting anything at the state level that could affect us, like pension and retirement plans and these things that can be a big nut if it happens?
In the 5-year plan, now this year we had put away, I think it was $58,000 for the pension. We know that cost hasn't shifted. So when we did the 5-year plan, we took that out. But we did make some assumptions about state revenue and some decreases in that. One of the things, though, that happened to us is the special ed room and board reimbursement is at a much lower rate than we had been receiving in the past. That we didn't know that information when we modeled, so that would be something that we may need to adjust a little bit. But again, now we've got the levy, so we'll go back and dump that information into the model and look at things again and kind of see where we're at. And as we continue to hear the budget talks from the state and things like that, we'll make adjustments as we go forward.
I have a couple of things. So, but funny you should mention home economics because I have that on my list too, back at the junior high. So, I'd also like to see about or investigate putting funding Destination Imagination again. I think in the past it's been funded, and there were up until these last 3 or 4 years there were. Well, now there's only one team, and it's funded by the parents, and I think in the past there have been 3 or 4 teams when it was funded by the school. I think it's a great experience for the kids. They learn lots of skills that they can carry through life. It's just, it's a great experience. They practice and they go to different contests, and then they can make it to globals in Florida. So it's really been a great experience. So I'd like to see that. And I don't think it's it's really a minimal cost too. I'm thinking maybe $2,200 or $2,000 for, and that's if they go to globals. So those are 3 competitions, and I think it's kind of a minimal cost. And then something else I also was thinking about was at the junior high, the cheerleading uniforms were, I think they're probably about 10 years old now, and they were inherited. I don't know if I tried to find out more, but I didn't get to talk to Ms. Polonsik about it. I think they were inherited, or gotten from the Park District, and they're about 10 years old, so that's something.
Just a few comments. Me being not exactly the newest guy on the block, but a pretty new guy. I've come together with the athletic director, Ms. Hillertz, and we've set up a rotation. This year were the basketball uniforms, and so then we're going to go to track. We do have a rotation that we did set up now that we're not so new. So there is something set up. Also, Imagination Destination, we're going to be meeting with one of the parents. She's going to be talking to our building leadership team as we add more structure to our Excel classes and our e-periods for next year. So whether that means that we're actually setting up a pure team there, or if we're using some of the I guess their challenges, different challenges, incorporating that into some enrichment opportunities for our students during Excel, that remains to be seen. But she is going to be presenting to our building leadership team.
Oh, that's good.
Just as an FYI.
And I think, too, it should be it goes from kindergarten through high school. So it could be not just the junior high, but it could be elementary and high school, too, so.
There's some great opportunities there, and obviously that team there's our sixth grade. Some of you might know some of those students, but they've seen they placed third in regionals, and they have the opportunity to go to state. So it's pretty exciting. Just to answer those questions.
Okay, so and the rotation about the uniforms is something
that is in the works, correct. Okay. That isn't, I don't believe that we're looking at replacing the cheerleading uniforms for next year, but it is something that Ms. Hillertz and I are working on.
All right, I guess I'll jump in. First off, I don't have, I think, hopefully nothing that's too huge, but because my wish for summer school and that expense has finally come true this year, that we're having a robust summer school program, something I've really wanted to see happen for the past number of years, and I'm so glad that we're able to have the money to do that this year for all our schools. One thing came to my mind as kind of a minor thing, but it is somewhat important because having sat through a couple of performances of the high school musical this year, it's so disappointing to hear parents say, it was so good, but I couldn't hear. And so I don't know what it is, but I would really like to find out if it's something mechanical, something with the soundboard, something with lack of microphones. You have students who put in the equivalent time as a sports team, working up to this one event. They put in 3 months on a musical, and then to have their chance on the field, kind of dampened by the audience's inability to hear, it's kind of sad, and I think we really should look at that. I'd at least like to know what the issue is. Is it a lack of training on how to use the equipment we have, or is it an actual, problem with the microphone system? It just seems really poor, and we put a lot of money a couple of years ago into auditorium seats, and we fill them with our community members to come to see their kids and just to come to an entertainment event, and it's a shame if they can't hear. So I'd like to at least look at that and just get some information about what's the issue, what are the options with that, because I think it's a kind of a ongoing problem.
Do you have anything else, Joel?
No, that's it.
I have a question. One of the seeming maybe deficiencies, and maybe this is covered, I don't know how much the financial or the economic aspect of home economics we're talking, but I think certainly something that I've seen missing in some of the kids, and probably, I know for me it was covered in home ec when I was in junior high. I don't know. Home ec has gone through evolutions, and I've heard different terms for it these days and stuff like that. So But I remember, when I was a kid, we were learning about bank accounts and money management and writing checks and those kinds of things. And now, of course, credit is so much more prevalent. And now we're even getting into, we're seeing the emergence of electronic things like Bitcoin and things like that are likely to grow. So I think money management, though, with so many people living in extreme debt, I think is something that we really should be putting in front of the kids at a younger age. I also think, something that pretty much everyone here, when we were over at the Tri-Conference event, the one thing I heard over and over and over, we need to be doing more technology stuff. So that's a broad topic with a lot of potential money, a lot of opportunities, a lot of different directions, and it's also an area where everything seems to obsolete itself within a couple of years, so you could run the risk of spending a lot of money on something that a couple of years later is garbage. But I just think it's something we should be keeping our eyes on. We saw a lot of things that were very interesting and, gave us some great ideas. Hate to see it just fall by the wayside and nothing change. Just something to really kind of keep in mind.
Hopefully we'll be talking about that at our eBird.
Yeah.
So.
Language at the junior high. So I know that we've done some work in the E-period of being able to have kids exposed to foreign language, which I do think is a step in the right direction, but it certainly isn't a foreign language program. It's a limited amount of exposure, which is better than no exposure. But I certainly think if there's a way, through electives or something, to have the program be more robust, it's at least worth getting the building's feedback and the instructional feedback.
Isn't there Spanish elective for next year?
There's Spanish 1 this year currently.
Right.
At the junior high. This is the first year that we've done it since it left the junior high.
Right.
And that's for what grade?
Right.
That's for 8th grade.
Right.
And
Eighth grade.
So the Spanish that's going on right now at the 6th grade and the 7th grade level, that's during our E-period, so that's an introduction to Spanish, and depending on the team, it could be anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks long, that intro to Spanish. And there's multiple opportunities to take it. But you're correct, it is not a true Spanish 1. Our Spanish 1 teacher, Kristen Woolwine, she's been working with the high school together. They have the same exit outcomes. They take the same exit exam. Because we have shorter periods at the high school, or at the junior high. Where am I at again? At the junior high than the high school. It is very rigorous. But we're meeting, collaborating with the administration at the high school and the teachers over at the high school, the guidance counselors as well. We just want to make sure that we're doing it right. And I know that the different people have expressed, community members have expressed the possibility that wanting us to have it at the 7th grade level as well. We need to make sure that it's going well at the 8th grade level before we could necessarily entertain that. But that's where we stand currently. If that's something you want me to look into deeper, then I can definitely do that, obviously.
I'm glad I get to go last because I get to piggyback. Joel, I'm glad you brought that up. It's very sad to go and to see all this work done by these students in fine arts. And we're a small district, and our fine arts department has been very good. And to have all this work, and then you can't hear the kids. And I like the analogy of, it's very similar to a sports team, and then you get there and then you can't hear anything. So I know kind of leads me to one of the other things I was talking about, and I'd mentioned this to Kevin before, and I know we brought this up as an example. We have a musical at the junior high every other year, and it's kind of unfortunate that depending upon what grade a student is, they might have 2 opportunities or they might only have 1. So, one of the things I had asked is I don't know if it's just because it's always been done, or if there's a possibility of seeing if there could be a musical every year at the junior high level. And then it kind of falls into the same thing, like if there were microphones, if that is something that could be shared, junior high and the high school, because the musicals don't go on at the same time. Now, I don't profess to know any of the logistics of any of that, but I feel really strongly about that too, because you get kids to come out to work on this, and then if they're not heard. I also, Shannon, I agree, I would like to see Spanish being brought back to our junior high, because, more and more and more, that seems to be something that we need in our educating our students. Kevin, one thing you brought up before, and you asked us about, and you kind of threw out there, was paying for AP students' tests if they can't afford it.
Right.
I guess I wonder, like, could you let us know, like, what those, like, what is it? I know what some of them are because I paid it, but what the typical AP test? And you don't have to answer this now. I'm just.
No. Well, okay. All right.
Well, and not just what the typical test is, but if we had a budgeted line item, what percentage, what does that number look like? I mean, is it an extra $1,000 a year? Is it an extra $10,000 a year? What would that item look like?
And I think this year we're getting an idea of that because obviously we expanded the program, put a lot of emphasis on it. I think we're close to 400 AP tests that our students are registering for, and so that's one of the discussions we've had. And should we be budgeting for assisting families, because if you have a child taking more than one, that's a cost, and in some cases, some families may not be able to afford the cost of the test, and so creating a line item within the budget to assist families with that.
Yeah, and I know you brought that up before, and I think that to the extent that, we're really increasing the rigor at the high school, and it would be a shame if a student couldn't take the test because they couldn't afford it. So, you brought it up before, and I just kind of wanted to bring that up again. And I guess, the same thing at the junior high too, in terms of the classes that go along with that same thing, to what can we do there in terms of if there's any. So I know there's the survey out there, when does that survey end for the junior high? You have a survey out on the junior high for parents.
I'll pull up the chair here. We do. We had, so there's a couple ways that we're surveying our parents right now. One is the survey that for the current 6th, 7th, and 8th grade parents, and it was open up till the 21st, so it is now closed. It was open up for 2 weeks, and that was 9 questions regarding the schedule, specifically Excel, the E period, and then there were a few other questions that were part of that as far as communication, if your child feels welcome in school, those kind of things. So there were some social emotional tied questions, and then there was some specific to the schedule. So that I was actually just going through some of those results.
Okay.
I was paying attention though also. And then there's also the 5 Essentials survey. Now the 5 Essentials survey is this is the second year in a row that the 5 Essentials survey is going out, and that window is currently open, and we'll have that available for parents to take during conferences. All of the schools will have that available for parents to take during conferences. But the faculty will be taking that. The junior high and above students will be taking that as well. And then there's another survey for the parents. We don't get any results if parents don't take, if at least 30% of a school's parents don't take that, we don't get the results back. So we've made it a goal, a SMART goal for this USD 201 Climate Committee to get 35% of parents to take that survey per school building so that we can get that data and make improvements in our schools as well as far as the overall climate. So there's really 2 surveys.
So let me ask you this, did I miss something, or did that email go out to the parents yet?
As far as 5 Essentials?
The 5 Essentials.
The 5 Essentials survey, it has not gone out.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's going to be located, we're going to have that on our website that you can link to it. Anybody can find it really, but we're going to have a link to it, and we'll have it during the kicking off parent-teacher conferences. But the window is open until, I want to say it's the 17th of April. It could be the 25th though. It's the 25th of April.
But if parents don't go to the parent-teacher conference, there'll be another.
They can take it from home. They can take it from the library.
No, I guess what I'm saying is, are you going to send out something?
Yes, we are.
Okay, that was my question. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. I guess that was, And then I guess, Kim, I have a question. So now we are not putting money in the, in our budget process for pension? Is that what you said in our projection?
We can add that. I mean, that's one of the things no
I
one
know.
really knows.
I know.
So, that's
Do
definitely.
we have any, I guess the question is, do we have any feedback from somebody with a magic ball that could tell us? I mean, I guess what we're seeing, though, is where things are going in Springfield, so
Right.
I guess, obviously there's been a discussion somewhere, but
Yeah. In terms of kind of what pension reform, it's going to the courts. So
Yes.
lawsuits have been filed, so until those are resolved, nobody will really know what's going to happen with that.
Probably.
But I mean, we can continue to model, though.
Right, yeah, I mean, we can
know.
still do that, so.
And possibly more important to that is the expiration of the temporary income tax hike that happens in the middle of our school year in January. And so whatever budget gets put together, which I think will be presented tomorrow from the state, we'll maybe have a better idea of how that will impact any funding prorations that come from the state, so.
Okay. Anything else?
Can I have $1 million for the pool?
Do I have, I think.
Somebody had to say it, right? I mean, come on, it was out there.
I do have one more, I guess. Now, we're talking about the sounds issue at the high school. I'm thinking too, the junior high, the last concert couldn't hear either at the junior high. So I'm thinking maybe we should, if there was any way to look at the sound system there too. When we went during the band concert, if you recall, couldn't hear. Oh. So I thought you were coming back up to the mic. No, you don't have to. I was just.
I do know from Mrs. Delanoy, who had been the choral instructor for many years before Mr. Faust joined us, that the microphone system, the wireless microphone system, it is on wheels and it can go back and forth from the two different locations. I know it has that ability. So with our musical that's going to be happening in the next 2 weeks, that will be a conversation that I'm having with Mr. Faust. I believe he's planned for it, though, and our musical will be taking place in the Commons this year.
Because I remember there was an issue with the band. We couldn't hear the band at the last band concert that they had too, so.
Okay.
Just thought. Okay, I'm done now.
Okay, then we're going to skip over the action item for now until we have a discussion. So superintendent's report?
The registration dates have been set for the 2014-15 school year, and the first registration day is July 24th, 2:00 p.m. to 7:00 p.m. at the junior high, and then the second date is August 6th, 2:00 p.m. to 7:00 p.m., again at the junior high. And so those have been set. And then the other thing it's not including the board book, but just briefly, March 18th was the referendum ballot, and that didn't pass. And so probably in the near future, the board, will need to have a conversation about, next steps, how we want to proceed with either a future question or how we want to move forward with that. But so that's something that we want to keep in mind going forward.
Okay, was that it? I had a question in terms of, it's not on here, summer school. I had a couple people ask me, just because of, like, some of the things, and I know we talked about this before, like the virtual summer enrichment program. Someone said, well, what are they doing? I guess
Right.
I'm getting some of those, and I know when I looked at it, and I know we had talked about that when we talked about what was going out, so you kind of don't know what you're signing up for, other than the specifics, like,
Right.
some of the AP
Right.
high school.
Right. And the virtual, that's math and reading, and that's using MAP. And, similar to what the students do during the school year, based upon where the student tests that, there are lessons that are developed, and then the student works on those independently because everything's web-based. And then we have one of our teachers who monitors the student's progress and then sets up the next set of lessons for the student. And so it's all, there's one optional day if they want to, and I can't remember the date right now, but we set up one day, a couple hours that they can go to the junior high. The teacher's there to help them set up their account, and then they can, but then the rest of the time, it would be June 12th from 11 to 1. So set up the initial login, and then it's up to the, it's self-paced, the student works on their own, and then the teacher monitors the progress.
Okay, and this is where I got it, because under your communication, it says summer school registration information is available. I knew I didn't just, so I guess that's the question. So when it says that, so it's going to be a continuation of what the student already
has been doing, right.
Okay, and that kind of wasn't, it says, assignments individualized for each student, and I didn't get it, and I know I've had that question.
And that's because it's something that we use throughout the school year, but it's a web-based program. So, and you're right, I skipped down to communications, and our summer school registration information is available.
Yeah.
It was sent out as a parent link, I believe. It's on the website of each of the schools in the district. And most of the programs, the registration deadline is April 25th, the end of April. There are a couple of options at the high school because they're driven by student success and whether or not they pass their courses. So that's extended a little bit beyond the end of the semester.
Okay, good. I knew I had that for a reason, so, okay. Anything else? Are there any board reports? Are you done?
Yep.
Are there any board reports?
I have a couple quick things. One, I do want to say that sound issues withstanding, I thought it was a fantastic performance. My family and I, we greatly enjoyed the show. Yeah, we did have a little bit of trouble hearing every once in a while, but it didn't interfere with us, having a great time. So a wonderful performance of Hairspray this weekend. Something else I'd just like to comment on kind of briefly with regards to the referendum. A couple brief thoughts, I guess. One is that some of the feedback that I saw both before and after the fact that I would just like to say a few words about. One, it seems like resoundingly this wasn't, although, no one's going to say that they're against school safety, okay? No one's going to say that, even if they're saying they don't want to open their wallets for it, which, that's fine. But, a lot of people came up and said, this wasn't about the fact that people were against what we wanted to do with the schools. This was more about, I think, two things. One, a perceived open checkbook, real or not. There was at least the perception that this meant open funds, uncontrollable, and that isn't just a measure of the trust in this board, but that's a measure of future boards. We don't know what's out there. Don't know what people are going to do. The other was really about communication. We were with a tight time frame. We had limited means. We had a horrible winter. So many closed school days. We couldn't put up signs. We couldn't do a lot of different things. But some people perceive that as trying to get it under the wire and sneak it through and stuff like that, which I know for myself and for most of the people on this board was not the case. It was a matter of our next chance to do something like this is a little ways off. So I think to the point, it didn't pass, but I think there was a lot to be learned from it. I think we got some community feedback. So the community knows that's something that this board resoundingly, as we've said in some other meetings, is very interested in, and we're interested in community feedback. But I also want to say I am interested in constructive community feedback. Some of the feedback coming in with finger pointing and accusations and things like that is not constructive. It makes it difficult to take various aspects seriously. You don't know what's real and what's not. But when people come in and say, you know what, I like this, I think this could have been better, this is what I didn't like, that's helpful. We can work with that. We can handle it better for everyone, for the community, for ourselves, for the kids. So, while I would have liked to have seen it pass so we could take action on different things, the community spoke and we can learn from this.
And that's what Kevin and I were talking about today, and that we should just, that's why he added it, so we just don't want to not talk about it, but I think that we are going to have a discussion at future meetings about what's the next step. Thank you for that. Oh, I thought you said something. I just have to say, I would like to, well, first of all, we've got the junior high musical, April 11th and 12th, Beauty and the Beast, so that's going to be spectacular. And I just have to say a thank you to some of who are in the room right here, that came into Manning for the reading week. I organized that, and it was just such a pleasure to see so many heroes of Westmont, as we call them, to come in and sit and read with the kids. And the kids are so excited to see policemen and firemen and superintendents and future principals come in and read with the kids. So I just have to say thank you. That made my job easier to kind of coordinate that. And it's a lot of fun, a lot of work, but a lot of fun. So I just have to say thank you for that commitment to reading with the kids. So I guess that's it. So we are, so we're going to go into closed session, and then there will be votes. There will be some votes after that. So are there any other public comments? All right, the chair will entertain a motion to enter closed session for the purpose of discussing collective bargaining, personnel issues, student discipline, probable litigation, and to review closed session minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Caparelli?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Mrs. Notbush?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
One more thing, we have kindergarten registration April 7th through the 11th, right? That's on here, just kind of putting that out there. And to the extent, everyone have a great spring break next week. Okay, we'll have a vote after closed. Back from closed, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the personnel recommendations as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Caparelli?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Notbush?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
The chair will entertain a motion to approve the 2014-2015 staffing as presented.
So
So,
moved.
second.
A roll call, please.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Notbush?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Ms. Caparelli?
Yes.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
The chair will entertain a motion to approve the board action on closed session minutes as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Notbush?
Yes.
Mrs. Charlton?
Yes.
Mrs. Hancock?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Caparelli?
Yes.
The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Happy spring break, everyone.